In the Pits is sponsored by Hustletown Paintball. Hustletown is a brand by Jason Tinsley of Houston that is all about representing Houston paintball and highlighting its local talent. Head to hustletownpaintball.net to browse their selection of casual wear and use code PIT10 for 10% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Compete. Compete is a Texas-based brand by Jell Stewart of professional team AC Diesel that provides custom jerseys, pants, headbands, straps, tech shirts, and any other soft goods to help individuals and teams compete at the highest level. Support Texas Paintball and message Compete on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits Podcast for 10% off your entire order. In the Pits is sponsored by FUAthletics, created with a purpose and focused on building a better you. We are a brand that matters in your workout, and every purchase gives back to cancer research. Go to thefuathletics.com and use code INTHEPITS25 for 25% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Get Dat Shot. Get Dat Shot now offers first-in-line photo and video editing, 20% off Get Dat Shot merch, and 20% off prints to all teams that wear the Get Dat Shot logo on their jersey. Message GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram to become a Get Dat Shot program team. In the Pits is partnered with Paintball Kumite. Paintball Kumite is a program designed by Colt Roberts of professional team San Antonio X Factor to take paintball players of all ages, experience levels, and skill groups and mold them into champions. The program breaks the game down into small, easy-to-learn sessions designed to help you master the fundamentals so that you can elevate your game. Newcomers to the program get a free 1-hour introductory class when mentioning In the Pits. To sign up for a class, message at Paintball Kumite on Instagram. Welcome everyone to episode 34 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and a new special guest. I'm Christian Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans, and this episode we are going in the pits with Jared Sherman, player for the newest professional team in the NXL, Austin Notorious. Jared, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. How about yourself?
Dude, I'm feeling good. This one is one that I've long been waiting for this day to be able to say newest member of the NXL Pro Division, Austin Notorious, and especially for you, my friend. I know it's been a long journey that I've gotten to personally witness a lot of, and you've definitely been deserving everything that's come your way this year.
Man, I appreciate that. It's definitely been a long time coming. There's a lot of stories, a lot of just obstacles, things, lessons, but everybody's got their own story. I'm just grateful that you've given me an opportunity and a medium to tell mine. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm here for. I know that everybody that's listening in or watching live, they're not here for me. They're here for everybody else, that all of the great individuals involved in the Texas scene, and even, the few that I've had that are outside of Texas. But there's just so many stories to tell that not many people get what I think that a lot of people should have that opportunity to. So I'm just here to provide that for more people. So let's go ahead and get started with yours. For those listening, maybe they don't know so much about you, Jared. How long have you been involved in the Texas paintball scene?
Man, on and off for like 20 years or so, 19 years, something like that. I know I may look young, 35. I appreciate it. I've been in the mix for a while. I've seen a lot of friends go pro. 99% of them without me, so I've gotten to see a perspective of this scene that most haven't. So I'm just grateful to still be around, though. There's a lot of people that I met through paintball that have unfortunately not able to play anymore for one reason or another. And here we are, still trying to build this community, still moving forward, still changing, boys to men, now young girls to women. So it's a great place to be.
Yep, especially here in Texas. I mean, just being involved for that long period is a feat that not many can say. And
It's
and now you're doing it at the top level too. So definitely a lot to be said about that. So for all of those years that you've been around, what are some of the teams that you've played for over the years?
okay. So I had to take notes and write stuff down, and I know I'm still missing some teams. But my very first team was called Glacier Rush. That was out of Constant Action. It's kind of it's a now torn down field, but I played with Cody Bayless of X Factor. Um, from there, we went with Mixed Nuts out at Petty Paintball. Petty Paintball is known for some of the older teams like Moxnix, Paintball Mart Factory. Moxnix was like an old Division One team. Uh, the Petty Paintball folks, Joe Petty, Jordan Petty, they were really kind to us. They actually turned an old like hangar into a paintball field. It was kind of cool. After that, I was with Bad Kitty. Bad Kitty is probably one of the more famous local old Texas teams. I met my probably my best friend there, Jeremy Zimmerman. OG in the game, still mixes it up with Diesel. Let's see. From there, us and Zone, the original Zone from Houston Zone, Brad Hashem, Jeremy, and a bunch of other guys, we kind of combined and we decided to go try to play X-Ball back when you would have kind of two different lines actually running. Played with, I hate to say it, but like a bunch of druggies with a team called Karma. Kind of same group of folks with another team that originally was the original Dark Horse. Since then, that team has kind of moved on and had other team players, like some of the guys from Fifth that joined. And that's way back in the day. ODK, that was Outlaw Destruction Crew. Like one of the original teams from Outlaw Paintball, which is where Austin Notorious practices now. SA Notorious. SA Notorious was the first rendition of Austin Notorious, and I've played with them for 4 years or so, on and off. I've played the most paintball with Austin Notorious, or Notorious in general. FSU or not.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Grit X. I'm sure we're going to talk about them. Who else? I-35 All-Stars with you. That was a blast. I mean, we took first in that event. We did the Raw Dogs with you as well. That was fun. Bunch of us old FSU guys. I was rostered for one event with Diesel. I played with STK for a couple events, and then now with D1 Pro Team Austin Notorious.
And that's a lot of different teams over the years, which I'm sure, people going to the top, they rarely stay. It's rarely a situation like the fit.com guys where they just stay all together through the climb all the way up. Yeah, I-35, good times in the moment, maybe not so good times in the middle of a hurricane, but yeah, it still blows my mind that, hey, at the end of it, it was September of 2020, you've got yourself, Paul Hubert, and Renee all playing in a D4X tournament just to go smash and grab the cash over in Houston, which ended up being Planet Eclipse vouchers, but and then right after that was the Raw Dogs with you, me, British, Dylan, and Paul. Like not too long ago, all you guys were hanging out in D4, D3 land, and now you're the newest pro team, which I think not only just speaks to y'all's work ethic over the last couple of years, but also just how freaking tough it is to play in Texas.
It is. there's definitely some conversation around the local local divisional ranks and the local tournaments and how they run their APPA points, and um, it's a touchy subject, but it gives people an opportunity to grind for as long as they possibly can, while mixing in, higher ranked players to not only provide some of that information and kind of like a trickle down effect, which I know that phrase doesn't sound great right now via economics, but um, it allows the information to basically reach players where it can actually make um, you know, some sort of improvement within younger folks' game. Plus, it also allows just the community to kind of come together. I know it gets kind of intimidating, at least from what I've been told, of just trying to talk to somebody that you may look up to, maybe not in stature or life, but just as a competitor. Um, it's tough for some people to ask for help, and so just having an opportunity where you're kind of forced to talk to younger players or inexperienced players or more experienced players, it forces the growth. It forces the growth.
Yeah, well, it's not easy for sure. I mean, it makes uh Division 4 into a complete like meat grinder, and I would like to see those teams at the top be forced to move up to Division 3. I think that overall is going to be better for the scene, where you have somewhere for those players to go, which I know that we talked a lot about on Chris Rangel's episode, just kind of the state of the league and where it's looking to go, in especially for this season, now that there's more competition as far as the choices that you have of tournaments to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see now, especially because like there's teams coming from all over the U.S. to compete in this Bunkerfest League, all the way from Division 5 up to D1. So it'll be cool to see more of a gauge on, hey, where does Texas like compare to the rest of the league, and not just like the one or two teams that go play and excel, like Shout Up We're Trying, Fit.com, Notorious, things like that. But I want to see like, how does everybody compare?
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough right now because, and this is just slightly different perspective, but it's you know, a lot of experienced players, higher end players, they love when they D-rank, because it means that they can go play events, maybe with their friends, maybe with their kids, or just maybe they got screwed out of being able to play because they hopped on a pro team and didn't get any spins, and so they did it for a while, and now all of a sudden they got cut, and so they can't play with anybody. At the same time, though, it's interesting to see. Like, I don't know if you saw that. What Ironman's roster looks like right now on their Sunshine.
Oh yeah, yes, I did.
It's wild. It's wild to see that caliber of players at whatever division that they're at. Knowing that, like, okay, sure, you're rusty, but the mind is like, it's not like it just goes away, especially at that. We're talking, all right, 5 years, 10 years out of the game, except you're still in the mix. Whether you're coaching or you're whatever. I mean, was it Ollie's ranked like D2? So it's and after a performance at Cup and whatever. So it's kind of tough to make an argument one way or the other. Like, you want people to outrank, but then all of a sudden you get ranked up to this like larfy middle ground of you end up. The problem with D3 is that, like, D3 is where a lot of people kind of settle out of, because that means that they can still play local events, but at the national level, that half of them might be pro, or they might have played Division 1. And when they combine that, and it's just a bunch of old school players mixing in, they go out and win stuff left and right, and it's tough to make an argument for one or the other. But the reality is I think younger, lower divisional players haven't learned how to practice yet, and so they have a tough time trying to get out of Division 4 and Division 3. And I know we'll talk about this a little bit later,
Mm.
I think that that's a real issue because you're fighting against people who know the game versus you who are just learning to play at that division. And even at the Division 3 level, when you're coming up from D4 to D3, great, you're a top D4 team playing D3. But there's other teams that are like top D2 teams or mid D2 teams that are playing D3 because they can, because you know 2 or 3 out of their players that would have played D2 are now D1, and so now they got a few D2 guys left, and they can fill the roster spots. So they just bump down to D3 to not uh, get shit on.
Mm.
It's a reality where you start comparing, national and local divisions, and it's not an easy answer, but I think that there's definitely some progress that like Bunkerfest is making. And I haven't been able to follow as much of it as I'd like, but I'm looking forward to it. Really, really looking forward to seeing what this next generation of events looks like.
Yeah, same here. It's definitely an exciting time. There's a lot of new opportunities here in Texas. I mean, you're already seeing lots of different tournament series. Like HCPS has already kicked off. XCPL is obviously already always around, and they've also got their Mech X Ball series in full force. So there's just a lot of different playing opportunities in Texas, and it's going to be cool to see. And I know we'll definitely get into this talk about kind of the state of like divisions and APPA points and all that in a little bit. So before we get there, though, tell me about how you first got into paintball.
Man, rest in peace, my grandfather. He bought my sister and I these old Brass Eagle like CO2 cartridge Talons, like little pump action gray guns, little gravity fed hoppers, and you know bless my sister, love her to death, even though we argue quite a bit. She was the first person that I ever shot with a paintball gun, and I'm forever grateful for her for taking the low ground and me taking the high ground. Um, that was pretty much the very, very first moment. Around eighth grade, so like I don't know, or seventh grade, eighth grade, like 2002, 2001, somewhere around there. Um, my one of my buddies ended up having a birthday party, and that was out at old now defunct Constant Action Field. Just to give you an idea, this field, like this is when like Sup Air and Airball just came out, and so they didn't have the money to buy an airball field. So what they did is they built bunkers, and they called the field 3D, and it was this three-dimensional kind of thing where they had like a hexagon version of a can. They would build like a pyramid and call that a Dorito. Stuff like that. It was very kind of handmade. Um, but we ended up going out there and for this birthday party, and I have a blast. I remember bringing my talons, sorry, and then realizing I was completely outgunned by the rentals. And so I stopped playing with my talent. I went and got a rental and just fell in love with it. From there, I like talked to my mom and told her how much I loved it and that I wanted to go back again and again. And finally, I think like saved up some money for some paint or something. And she took me out there again. And this was like my first walk on time. There was nobody there. I didn't have any friends out there. But I went and I got bought like this it's like a black with blue splash Piranha. Just shitty mechanical gun. Still have it actually to this day. And that kind of was really the beginning of like, all right, we're gonna start doing this. Um, my dad and mom, they didn't just like pay for my shit. They always made sure that I worked my ass off for stuff. So like when I grew up, I was used to mowing lawns. I'd wake up at like 6 a.m., start knocking lawns out at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, pissing my neighbors off. But I was hustling, man, like trying to just knock out yards. It'd be like 20 for the front, 30 for the back, 40 for both. I'd get my sister, we found like another lawnmower that was busted down. My dad fixed it up, brought my sister in, paid her $10. So like she would knock out the back. I'd knock out the front, and so like we just started hustling at young ages, and so when it came to paintball time, it was like there was no food or drinks out there. It was just kind of like a, I don't know, it almost looked like now that I think back, like a stable of sorts, like for horses and shit. My mom ends up going to like Sam's Club, buying a big old box of drinks and stuff, and start trying to sit out there and slaying drinks and chips and stuff to try to make enough money to play paintball. And then I found out you could ref, and I think refing was like, I mean, for me and for most kids, it's like a rite of passage. Um, it's like it's a job, so you got to be there bright and early. You got to work. Um, you got to deal with people that aren't always the best. Maybe they're drunk, maybe they're lively, whatever. Um, but for us, it was like this wasn't a big field, so if the field didn't make a lot of money that day, well, even if we worked 6 8 hours, we still got we got a small percentage. There were days where like I'd be there for 6 to 8 hours and I'd make half a case of paint. I mean, that's how I was paid. Or I'd make $20, and maybe I'd get a consolation prize of a chopped beef brisket from the gas station down the road, which I still drive by, and see damn near every day now. I got this other job, but um, it was different. It was different. But I met some really good people. I met Grayson Goff through that field. I think that was the first time that I saw Archie Montemayor. That's like, that place, the old owner, Jack Withers, he actually used to have a shop in somewhere in South Austin off like 290. And they were so good at like tuning autocockers and stuff and back then it was the old AKA guns like the Excaliburs and Vikings, and they would have this Viking that they would take a crunchy Cheeto and they would put it in the breech, and they had it tuned so low that they would just rip on it and it would never break the Cheeto. But then you drop a paintball in there and shoot it and it'd be like 290. So that was like the camp that I kind of came from. And there's a lot of OGs that came from there. But respect to constant action.
And I mean, when you've got names like Grayson Goff and Archie Montemayor coming out of that same camp, I mean, you're definitely in good company right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just working your way up as a kid. Man, I hear all these stories. Like there's so many that got started as a kid. And then what surprises me, I know we were talking a little bit about it over the weekend. Like Mark Johnson didn't get started until he was 23 years old.
It's cool. That shit's cool, man. That shows that no matter what age you are, you can still fucking get involved in paintball, and you got to keep that rolling because there's always hope for somebody like Mark Johnson to get involved and change the sport. So
absolutely,
gotta keep fucking playing. That's badass.
All right, so we got a quick question in the chat from Josh. His question is for the story that you just told. Would you eat the Cheeto after?
Oh, dude, I don't know, man. I don't think they did count. But back then it was like everything was Dow 33. Like they didn't have all these crazy lubes. But probably, man, I'd probably eat the Cheeto for sure.
Right on.
As long as it's hot Cheeto, man. Hot Cheetos.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this next question comes to us from Hustletown Paintball, which is one of my friends over in Houston, Jason Tinsley. Head to hustletownpaintball.net, use code PIT10 for 10% off of your order. So throughout your time in the Texas paintball scene, what are some things that have changed in the scene for better or for worse?
One of the things that's changed is Austin Notorious has a website, austinnotorious.com. The biggest thing, man, was fights. Back then there was a lot of fights, and it's like, I don't know, maybe humanity has matured. Maybe it's our sport. Maybe we just didn't know how to handle ourselves, but things were really rough back then. And like if you watch the Best Kids in Texas paintball documentary, I think it's on Amazon Prime. You should definitely go watch it. It's about X Factor. Great documentary. they talk about how bad it was. It was just brutal, man. Like stuff carried from the field into the parking lot to the highways. People got ran off the road. Um, you know, everybody was real trigger happy, and but you were if you stuck it out, you could stick it out through like anything. And I don't know if that's just the way that everybody's raised or whatnot, but that was a big thing. Nobody, well, I say nobody, very few people helped you become better. Um, that's a biggest difference between then and now. The sport was just evolving back then, and people were learning to play paintball. It was like the tip of the arrow was then. I mean, and it's always now, right? Living in the moment. But at that moment, X ball was just becoming, speedball was just becoming. So I guess people were learning how to play these things, and it wasn't so X's and O's. Uh, they really kept that stuff to themselves, because of kind of and also the limitations of fields. Um, there was just not a lot of opportunity to be helped. Um, it definitely took a lot of time for information to be learned, be understood, and then get back to like somebody that could digest it and like give it to the rest of the community. Um, it was really interesting. I will say though, there were a lot of people that did help me in particular. Um, Ryan Perez is one of them. He used to play for X Factor. He played for Legacy. He played for Moxonix. Uh, he helped me learn that your gun can be your bunker, and people don't look at you if you're shooting at them. People don't come out if you're shooting at them. So, you know, he showed me how to play a blind spot or a dead zone. He showed me how to run and gun. He taught me, it's like put people in and move, use your gun. Um, Colt Roberts was a big one growing up, still is to this day. Um, Grayson Goff was a big one back then. Alex Martinez has been like kind of a like it's been interesting. Um, I tried out for X Factor when I was a kid, didn't make it. So he's always just been somebody that I've like kind of looked up to. Um, but somehow like our paths cross randomly, and he's always anytime they do, he's always there to help. He actually accidentally called me one time, called him back, and he straight up told me, like, hey man, didn't mean to call you, but you know what? I believe in God and fate brought us together, and what's going on? Alex has always been one of those guys to be there. And another guy that I highly doubt he's listening to this, but John McCorkle, man, that dude, he's OG. He's part of like old Archie Grayson crew. That dude's been really nice, and so uh, it sucks, that one of the things that I remember most about back then was how much people didn't help you. But fact is those like pieces of light in all that darkness, they made, they were my flashlight to get to here. So, but one of the things that's like, I guess, things that's gotten better is like stuff like what you're doing, these podcasts. In the pits, play the game, spick and span, paintball nerd, all of them. They're great because we had talked about this prior to coming on. Like, you guys are responsible for the storytelling of hundreds, potentially thousands of years of experience and perspective on the same time period. You're showing stuff from all these different angles, and that's impressive. Most of my learning comes from listening to like 3-hour podcasts for like a 1-minute segment. And when you have a plethora of that information, your rate of growth just really skyrockets. So I'm forever grateful to you guys. The YouTube channels. And then now currently, like for at least us, our own development, it's been a lot of old pro players, Tyler, Ross Saunders, Jesse Stevens. Like these guys have in their own desire to be better, and be great at what they do, whether it's a life coach, whether it's somebody on the field, whether it's off the field. They always try to instill that in you. And so having access to all this information and these types of people that are continuing to move forward and the paintball timeline, man, it's big. I will say, and this is probably, I don't know, I'm just gonna say it. I think one of the biggest factors for Texas becoming better is Greg Pauly and the AC system that he's brought in. We use a variation of it because of the manner in which this information is disseminated, and how many players Greg Pauly's been responsible for building and teaching these systems, including Tyler Spees and Ross Saunders, who both helped us. His system and understanding kind of and basically teaching like even the dumbest player to play paintball based on like this and this and this. Like I don't know of any, I don't know of many pro teams or high end teams that aren't using some sort of variation of it. And maybe it's just because he's the messenger, because I'm sure zones have been in the sport for a while. But when I took my original break, it was very much, you go here, shoot, and you live and die by your gun kind of thing. It was all gunfighting. Rolling off, shooting gaps, that didn't exist. Bounce shots, that shit didn't exist. It was very grunge, very in your face. It was, fight or flight kind of thing. But he's actually improved the way that we play paintball to the point where like in the top tier team in damn near every division. And that information continues. Now you see what they've got with Diesel now, and it's, they're going to be a force to be messed with. Like, but that same thing, that's going to force everybody else to be better, and so just having access to competition like him, man, I'm grateful for that, because like that's going to make me better. That's going to make all of us better. So yeah, it's different, man. Things have definitely changed, but I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I know with just kind of going over a couple of those points that you brought up, like I know Mark Johnson, Alex Martinez, a lot of those guys brought up just how violent it was back in those days.
Oh, man.
Which I'm glad to see that it's calmed down a lot, because now like you're seeing cool things be able to come out of it, like the Young Guns like surgence here. Like Young Guns is sold out at Bunkerfest. Young Guns had an awesome event at World Cup, and now you're seeing more and more younger kids and teenagers get into the sport, which is really, really cool, I think. And it's going to be great for the health of the sport as a whole. And then just like all of those mentors that you listed, like those guys are still doing it to this day with a bunch of new guys, like especially at least for me personally, like Jesse Stevens, Colt Roberts, Alex Martinez. Got to work with Jeremy Zimmerman at my first X-Ball event, and then Ross Saunders as well. Like all those guys have been awesome. And then it's also great to see like you're carrying on that as well. Like for me personally, when I graduated college, I was first coming out of the NCPA scene. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I showed up to the field. It was probably like a month or two before the COVID pandemic shut everything down. But like, I had showed up to what was, I think, the Ruthless tryouts at that time. Like, and I had played a couple of years in NCPA, but like I was entirely self-taught. So like Outlaw was went through a period like before Notorious got there. Like yeah, the ATX Kings were there, but this was before they had their really good season where they ended up winning Division 4 at USXBL. So like we were all self-taught and I didn't know what I was doing. So I graduated college, moved down to San Antonio. I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And you're there just doing drills and you give me all these pointers. Like I showed up to the Ruthless tryouts and like my trigger was falling out of my gun because I tried to 3D print a thing and I was just like all sorts of a mess, man. So yeah, Jared just gives me like weight loss tips and like what drills to do, what to focus on, things like that. And so yeah, it's great to see that you're kind of continuing that. Helping those below you, kind of help bring them up, and I'm very happy to see that that where you are now, because you've definitely deserved it, and you're helping bring others up with you.
Yeah, I've learned to be grateful. Um, I've learned to be grateful for everything, and that if things don't happen, then it wasn't for me. And in that gratefulness, you try and give back, and not necessarily teach, but provide information. So if somebody wants to vacuum it up, they can. For like the weight loss thing, like I told you then, like, man, I've been 40 pounds overweight. Like I'm probably like 180 right now. I've been like 220 because I just got undisciplined in life, not even in one thing or the other, just life. And I fought through that shit, got back, dropped the ball again. So I got good at it. And it now it's just kind of like this all-encompassing thing. It's like I know we'll get into plants later, but it's kind of like having a nutrient deficiency. And it's like just when one part of your life is off or when things aren't working properly, it affects everything else, and like that's why I feel that you can do all the right things, but if you're missing one thing, it doesn't matter. You're not going to go anywhere. It's kind of like the drills and stuff, man. But I'm not necessarily for me, but like for you, I'm just grateful for anybody, man, that like accomplishes their goal, because weight loss is a big one for a lot of people, because it affects people even in their own, like, their mind, and yet their ego tries to fight with the other voice inside of them, saying that this isn't a big deal or this is or whatever, but yet you feel like some sort of weight spiritually, kind of, or maybe emotionally, or even in your confidence.
Oh, hey Jared, I think we lost your audio for a sec. Could you double check that? Maybe turn your audio off and on.
Can you hear?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, sorry, man. What was the last thing you heard?
Just weight loss being a confidence thing, or
So all of it, there's a lot of stuff that we try and hide, but confidence. So I think that kind of permeates the rest of your life. I'll just sum it up.
for sure. All right. So I want to move on to our next question here. We got a lot of people popping off in the chat. What's up, everybody? If you have something you want to ask Jared, please go ahead and get your questions in the chat. We'll get to it later on in the show. We'll have a segment for that for everybody to get their questions in. Jared, I think we lost your audio again there. I might want to double check that. Here, I'm going to try turning off my camera just to see if that improves things. Hopefully that'll fix it. Try speaking now. No, I still don't got you here. Try disconnecting and reconnecting the call. All right, y'all. So while we're waiting to see if we can fix this, I'm just gonna go through some of the stuff in the chat. Let's see what's up, everybody. Oh, all right, Jared. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Perfect, man. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good.
I got just really bad service here. It's yeah, we're in the boonies.
No, we know all about that from last week. So yeah, we just looking through the chat right now. A lot of love for you right now. We got yeah, one comment saying he's so dreamy from Mel.
She said she wasn't gonna watch, but then she was gonna watch just to make sure that I mentioned her name. So that's my girlfriend Mel. She's been a fucking sweetheart and supportive, and she listens to me talk about paintball every day. And you got to find somebody like that, you know, somebody that can just deal with your bullshit and still love you for who you are. So thank you, babe.
For sure. And or find someone who works on Sundays. That's what I did, and it works great. All right. So over the last 3 years that I've known you, at least, you've ascended the ranks really quickly. So you've gone from playing D4 events with me in 2020 to now you've just won the semi-pro series with Austin Notorious just 2 seasons later in 2022. You wouldn't have been able to complete that climb without putting in an incredible amount of work to get there. So what did either your drills or your maybe your film study or your workout regimen look like?
So full disclosure, I was playing Division 2 when I was like 18. So I reached that rank, stopped playing, stopped playing, all of that. That's not to say that I wasn't playing Division 4 events and doing that. And so I will say the biggest thing was learning how to drill properly. There are different drills that you should be doing depending on the division you're playing. Simply because you have to master some things before you can master others. And it does no good to learn things if you can't make a shot. You have to, what it comes down to is you got to be able to put this ball on this dude's face. And if you can't do that from this distance at this speed, running this angle, you got to practice other things, you know. And so drills, just standard snap shooting and running and gunning were big ones, because you should be confident in your ability to hit somebody. And when you can shoot somebody, it makes the game a lot easier. It sounds really stupid, but I got a lot of teammates that don't really drill. I know a lot of really high-end pro players that don't drill. It just depends on who you are, but my mind has always been, if I can hit somebody easier, then why wouldn't I be doing that? But as far as if you don't have time to drill, maybe you don't have the money to drill. The big thing that you can do is learning to watch video properly. And for a lot of that, it's about, you have to have a goal or a question or something that you're looking for. I will say a big one, for instance, coming up to World Cup was, knowing that, all right, we've got essentially this wall, this W that's there. So I wanted to learn, all right, what's the best way to play this beyond what I've done? And so it's like, who plays the wall the best? Nick Laval, the wall. So I go back and start watching a lot of film, and I'm specifically watching him. That's it. I don't really care about anything else. I'm just watching him. So, you're watching the game, but he might be at the bottom right corner and the focus is over here, but that's not what you're watching. You got to watch this. And then once you start watching his moves, then you start having to visualize, okay, well, what is he shooting at? Who's stopping him? So now you have to watch the game from a different perspective. You have to watch from the guy that's trying to stop Nick. And then from there, you watch it, well, who's the guy that stops the guy trying to stop Nick? So I learned that if you're if you do something in a game and you mess up, or in a tournament and you mess up, you need to be drilling that move or watching games for that event, for that sequence of actions to figure out the best way to go about it. So let's say you did a run through and you missed the guy. Well, you need to go practice those 4 steps all over again. 1, 2, 3, shoot. And when you miss it, you walk back and you do those 4 steps again. And I'll do that over and over and over and over again until you just start hitting it. And then you realize the body mechanics that are necessary. And what I mean by that is like, you can feel like, all right, if my gun is here, I miss him. But if it's back here and I feel this actuation back in this muscle, then I know that my barrel's at the right place because I'm going to drag my paint into them. Little things like that, are stuff that like you have to inquire within yourself. And like, I got buddies that like to drill with me. Like everywhere, doesn't matter, X Factor, Outlaw, whatever. And that's fine. But sometimes I like to drill on my own because I need my own time at my own pace without somebody distracting me to figure out the things that I want to figure out. Some people want to talk about game plans for layouts. I don't care about that right now. It's Wednesday. The layout dropped. I'm going through my progressions. I don't give a shit about anything else. I just need to learn my shots so that when the layout comes in or when the game plans start coming out, well, fine. That's just how am I going to get to the place to get my shots? Going from like D5, D4, D3, like D5, D4, you got to be doing your fundamentals. You got to be crispy and like start with basic stuff, how to play a bunker properly. So I created an Instagram account that I didn't want to tell anybody that it was me, just because I found that like people are willing to accept your information or your lessons a lot easier if they don't have any sort of prejudice, or maybe they look down upon you or they look to the side or things like that, right? So I just did it, and it's whatever. But paintball philosophy on Instagram. I try to break down the philosophical side of things, like how to play the 1, the 2, the 3, what to do if this, then this, how to approach stuff. I put my thoughts on the World Cup layout, just little things like that. But that's definitely more D3, D2, D1 pro. But learning what to do and how to do it. But I think, man, the biggest one for us, and I know, I've talked about it. I know I try to talk to other people about it, but like 2 paws and a hopper. Like I know it's nice to hold lanes, and this is my opinion, because I feel like I started playing one way and then I've grown to this. I feel you hold zones and you contain players as a baseline methodology of winning a game when you don't know how to shoot them otherwise. So it's easier for me at a lower level to hold somebody in and hopefully let my 1 go all the way down and shoot them in the back, opposed to today, me, I let people go. Like, I want you to get into a spot that's a little closer to me. And also it saves me money. Like my kills per dollar goes up. I can get closer. I'll let you get somewhere and let you get somewhere and then just bait you into the kill. I find doing that lets you see more of the mid to end game, because when you're just holding zones, you're basically just seeing the beginning of the game. You break it up beginning, middle, end. When you're just holding people until you basically run out of paint or get to that point where people have to start making moves, you're only seeing the beginning of the game. And that's a lot of paint.
It's basically just a big stalemate until someone runs out.
Right. And then you see the middle to end. I like seeing the middle to end because that's like the rep. That's the ending of the full rep. So if I can just see those reps, like, 6 pods in a pack, that's 3 reps for me. For you, it's 1. I think that helped me, and for us, I know when we were leading up to Chicago where we took second, like, we did a lot of 2 pods in a hopper. And, when you're trying to catch up with like a lot of these big money teams, you got to find a way to do it. And I think like 2 pod in a hopper is a very economical way that actually has some real world practicality to it. Yeah, man.
Cool, man. There's definitely a lot of good feedback there for anybody looking to climb. I mean, there's for lower divisional guys, and my next question was going to be, do you have any tips for divisional players out there looking to climb the ranks at the top? I mean, as it sounds like you've got to do a lot of work as individuals just to like get your fundamentals down, because like it doesn't matter if your game plan's great if once you get to the spots you can't shoot anybody. So,
dude, I will tell you this. We had a player that was super fast on one of the earlier D1 team that I played on early in this year. Really fast, really fast. But I think he was like D4. He could get to his first bunker, his primary, but then he would get worked by somebody who was actually Division 1. So it was kind of like, great, we'll send you far, but like you need to learn to just island. You got to just chill, man, because when you engage in these fights and your chances of winning are very low, especially from that distance where you're fighting somebody, a 2 or a 3, whose job it is to contain you. And they're so good at it that they've reached Division 1 status. Like your chances of winning are slim. And we didn't have guys that were capable of doing that at that point in time. But yeah, I mean, man, the biggest things that I think, and what really helped me was asking why. And I know it's something that a lot of teachers don't like hearing because they just want you to do something, especially a coach that doesn't have any time. It's just like, look, I'm here, just fucking do what I say. I get that. And there are ways to ask why. Sometimes it's not always just why. Sometimes it's, can you elaborate? Can you help me understand this a little bit better? Sometimes it's, I know you're really smart and I'm really dumb, but can you please help me accomplish the goal that you've set out for me? But asking why is like, it gives you the foundation, the structure of whatever you're doing, and the ability to teach that. So when you have the ability to teach, that means you have a thorough understanding of it. And I feel like right now, paintball is a very alpha sport, and it's very ego driven. And so people don't always want to ask why, because it shows that they don't understand something. And that's fine. Like, it's okay to go, years in the sport and not have an actual understanding of something. It's weak to not try and find what the thing that you need to know is. It's not strong. It's a weakness. But you got to have like, something in there that you're not afraid of shattering. Because, you ask somebody that maybe you held in high regard, and you would hope that they had held you in high regard, and you don't want them to look down on you. But I would say most importantly, like, don't settle for a rate of progress. As in, if it took somebody 10 years to do it, don't think it has to take you 10 years. Find a way to be more efficient. Make it make 7. And if somebody else did it in 7, well, fuck, you can do it in 5. Like, don't like, otherwise you're not going to catch up. And I caught up. All the people that didn't play D2 at 18 caught up. All my homies caught up. So there's no reason you can't catch up. There's none at all. You just got to find out what works for you. Everybody's path is a little different. Sometimes you're just born with speed and athleticism, and you're going to be a 1. You get cherry picked. That wasn't my journey. That was not my journey. I started out as the 1 because I love to attack, but I'm slow. So when there were faster 1s, as you start climbing higher and higher in the ranks, like, I got moved down. And eventually I got moved down to the 3. And that happened when I was like D2. I was like, man, back then you thought of the 3 as like it was a terrible way of thinking about it. Maybe it was just whatever, but usually it was the most out of shape guy that played the 3, or the guy that was interchangeable. And I hated that. So I learned how to play the 3. I think I'm damn good at it. Could be taller, whatever. What are you gonna do? Just fucking play your game, and you know what? If somebody's taller shooting down you, get lower, move to the side, like just figure it out. But man, bet on the 1 out of a million. Like, it doesn't cost you a lot, but like the return is huge. Like, bet on yourself. Just don't give up.
For sure. Lots of people in the chat right now are saying this is, they're going to have to go back and write, take some notes on this one. Definitely lots of great stuff in there, Jared. Appreciate it.
Good.
So with everything in your journey, this next one is brought to us by FUAthletics, which is Thomas's brand over on the Titans.
Nice,
go to thefuathletics.com, use code inthepits25 for 25% off your order. So what has been your favorite moment in your career so far?
Oh, dude, winning World Cup. And then, oh man, I feel so bad for those guys. I love Fit. I love those guys. I feel like I have an emotional connection with them. Casey used to coach. Casey Harris, their coach. He coached FSU, and he actually, I think, coached us in my worst tournament I think I've ever played in my life. Got shot off break every single game, every point. It was terrible. After we won World Cup, we're celebrating and having beers and stuff, and Casey comes up to me and is like, I think you guys won the spot. I'm just like, nah, bullshit. Thought you guys won it. Totally, like, I just thought they were messing with us. And no, he's like, no, I think you won it by 1 point. And Renee, shout out to the homie Renee, he's standing right next to me. And I just like look over, I'm like, bro, they said we won the spot. Don't tell anybody. They said we won it by a point. And his eyes and mouth it's just, man, was unreal. What's crazy is like, dude, the vibe through the whole thing was just like, man, we're just fucking fighting for us, for our homies who couldn't be there. Like Brandon White, man, that's fuck. My boy, like he lost a lot of family. Like, rest in peace, man. And we played for him. Like, when I say he lost a lot of family, man, like multiple funerals within like a short time period. He was grinding with us, like the practice before, and then couldn't make it. And before that, he couldn't make Chicago because his mother passed. And like, dude, we were out there grinding for him. We were grinding for our other homie Diego Soto, who passed away. Like, it was just this thing, man, where, and we took second in Chicago, so we're just fucking pissed. In overtime in Chicago against Blast Camp, like in the pouring rain. It was just like there was so much there, and you it couldn't be more storytell. Like, we were kind of joking, like, man, let's write a good story here. Like, let's write some real shit. And there were little bits of stuff, little things that we kind of did on the path that made the story even better. So yeah, man, winning World Cup and then finding out we won the pro spot. It's the best there ever is. I don't understand what else you can do. It's like everything that every divisional player fights for. Like the goal, what do you want to do? Let's go pro. Let's go pro. Fucking did it. It's cool, man. It's cool.
Yeah, I remember just hanging out with you guys all, on and off throughout Cup, just in between my matches, and
Yeah,
man, I just like the spark kind of started a little bit whenever Blast Camp ended up not making it out of prelims. We're like, there might be something here after all.
Yeah,
And
people talk about it. Kind of give them the look. It's like, you know what? We're just not going to talk about it. Keep moving forward.
Oh yeah.
And like it was an event where for us to win, everybody else had to fuck it up. Sorry, they had to mess it up. We just had to do our thing and not mess it up for us. And whatever way it's gonna work out, happened to be in our favor that day.
Yeah, I mean, still counts though, right?
It still counts. Oh man, and just to touch on the double points thing, it's only a conversation because it's a conversation.
Right.
I don't care what anybody says. If it wasn't a 1 point difference, it's irrelevant. Like, instead of saying double points, just say 200. Oh well, then it doesn't matter. Like,
you already know what my thoughts are there on the whole double points thing. Man. I wrote the whole post and everything. Like, y'all want it either way.
But the same thing, like, dude, I'd be saying the same thing. Oh, fucking double points, man. And it's only an issue because people lost, but that's kind of that's what made it cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what made it something. I mean, it's for the underdog. And if you're not rooting for the underdog, who are you? Like Mighty Ducks. You got to be the best, man. Double points.
Funny thing is, like, even like I made this post, or anybody who's watching, I made this post and put it on the Paintball Talk Buy Sell page, rest in peace. And it was just like, hey, breaking down the numbers of like, hey, if this were the 2021 system with no double points, who would have won the spot? So Notorious still wins it. The only difference is Blast Camp gets third place instead of fourth place.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. So as a fan of the sport, right? It's hard to not say that Blast Camp may have been the best team at a certain point in the division. At a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That point ended with Chicago. After Chicago, it was us. Fit, damn good team. Man, when they lost Trenton's like, he's an anchor, and I love Chuck. Chuck's my boy. Chuck replaced Trent as the 2 on the snake side. Like, Trenton's just cold-blooded, man. And like, it's hard to say what would have happened had Trenton played.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a monster, like he's really good. And they lost I think they did this Cole and somebody else. They did this Lone Wolf and Trent. They did this Lone Wolf podcast. It's worth watching. Like, go back, watch it. They lost like 3 guys or something, and that's rough. That's rough. But it just adds one more thing for athletes to focus on, and that's like your physical health. I don't mean like your weight, because that's always a joke, and it's like,
mm-hmm.
That's not what I mean. Like your joints. Like, for me, my knees. I, like, as a farmer, I'm walking around on uneven ground all the time. As a paintball player, I need my knees. I need my ankles. And so what I found out is, like, excuse me, I used to wear steel toe boots, and that extra weight at the front of your foot, it provides like this, like an extra torque on your knee, and you don't notice it until you start noticing it. And I eventually had to stop wearing steel toe boots. And so just little things like that, or even when you're driving and you have like your foot on the gas pedal, and then when you put it on the brake, you just kind of shift it. Well, that puts like torque on there. And so when you have other like knee injuries or stuff like that, kind of exacerbates it, or at the very least, it doesn't help it. And so like as somebody who's 35 going on 36, like closer to 40 now, I have to start paying attention to stuff like that. And I think that's just something that they're going to now focus on. And so for Fit moving forward, like, shit, now they know. So it's going to be tough to beat them. Like they're going to be strong, man. They're going to be really strong this year.
Yeah, I know all about that injury bug. I mean, as someone who's been dealing with severe back injury this past year, like I missed 4 events this past year. Which
Jesus.
like at I don't remember if we ended up seeing each other at NXL in Dallas this year, but like I could barely walk. And I was there just like I picked up the clipboard and did my best, but like I couldn't even wheel my own gear bag. That's the level that I was at. So like that's no joke, man. You really have to take care of yourself. Cause like now I'm like, I've gotta think about this stuff. Like, hey, am I, what pod pack am I wearing? That's a big thing, and thank goodness for carbon, because that has really worked to like lessen the stress on that part of my back. And like, hey, I have to think about how I dive, all this movement mechanics, and then just like, day-to-day stuff. Yeah, injury bug, no joke. All right, so kind of getting away from the paintball talk for a little bit, and more just like into your personal life. So in your field of work, you operate hemp farms both in Oregon and here in Texas. So tell me more about what does that line of work involve for you?
So, okay, so I had a farm in Oregon, still have the property. I have a farm here in Texas. It's actually on my parents' property. They've got like 56 acres out here, and it was a great opportunity to like take advantage of stuff. But I mean, and that's kind of I'll go down that story. But man, my work is always been focused on breeding and finding genetics. And so when I moved to Oregon, it was about linking up with people, different breeders, different farmers, trying genetics, and trying to find what worked the best for a given environment. So the effect an environment has on a genotype or a certain set of genetics is the phenotype or the phenotypic expression. It's essentially like if you were to take you, and instead of growing up here in Texas in this paintball scene, you grew up in the California paintball scene, how you would change. You're still the same person, but you might talk a little different. You might have a little different swagger. You might say different things. You might play paintball different. That's a phenotype. So what we would try to do is find stuff that works for different areas. Because of Texas's environment, it's very unique and extreme. And because of the limited kind of cultivation culture out here, as far as like the outdoors concerned, we found that a lot of the genetics, probably 90% of the stuff from all over the US didn't work out here. And so a lot of what I do is like growing really bad plants and finding the ones that do grow good. And then you take those and you start trying to make seeds with them. And from there, the idea is to produce something that a commercial cultivator will like and choose. And so ideally, you try to find something that has a heavy yield, high potency as far as whatever cannabinoid content they choose, depending on what they're wanting, whether it's like high THC, high CBD, high CBG, that chemical type, also known as a chemotype, that will go to different farmers depending on where they are. And so like in Oregon, we were able to do a lot of high THC stuff. Here it's CBD, CBG. But it's a lot of investing and losing money. That's what it is. It's like I can do everything, but it comes down to like what's the potential of the genetics. And when you run them indoors, under perfect environment, they do great. But that's not really what I enjoy. I mean, it's fine. Um, but like with Texas being so new and so young in the cannabis industry as a whole, I feel that the information that I've put forth, and I'm acquiring just from my own data collection, uh, it's extremely valuable. I mean, it's the first stuff that's legally allowed to be cultivated in a long time, where we have access to like the internet, and we can document stuff, and we can run like lab tests for things, and we can run experiments and stuff. It's unique. But overall, man, like outside of the hemp and stuff, I currently work for a medical marijuana place here in Texas called Good Blend TX. I'm the cultivation supervisor there. Uh, I I basically grow a bunch of indoor. That gets processed for extraction, uh, turned into edibles, and then they've got like a fleet of drivers that drive all over Texas and deliver to your door. Pretty cool.
Yeah, interesting. I don't smoke, so I'm like I have zero perspective of any of this industry as a whole. So it was interesting to me to learn that hey, this like laws have changed in Texas, and so now now it's legal to cultivate. So, what are some of the challenges that you have encountered over the years from this work, either from like maybe legal challenges or maybe just like the nature of the work or the landscape of it all? What are some of the challenges you've encountered?
So this is where I feel like things can get kind of lengthy. Um, is that okay? Or
Tell your story how you want to tell it.
all right, man. The biggest challenge for everything is like you have to have a legal means of income. You can't fund a recreational operation with black market money. You
Mm.
can't do it. Even when I was in Oregon buying a house and property, that's one of the things that they ask. Like, it doesn't matter if you got the money in your bank. It just like you have to show some sort of source of income. And so like funding that dream was kind of the first challenge. And I knew that I wanted to do something. It was just how do you get to that point? And that took 4 or 5 years to do. I had another business that I'll try to sum that up. We did another bunch of manufacturing and distribution of herbal products to a bunch of smoke shops and distribution companies. That generated enough income for me to go out there, buy property. That was kind of a whole thing because so in order to do certain activities on certain chunks of property, you have to have certain zoning rights, or you have certain zoning rights that allow you to do things like that. In cannabis, you typically need something that allows you to do agricultural activities. However, a lot of that kind of was altered when the medical and hemp fields kind of collided. It's the same thing with recreational. So the idea was that recreational was a commercial activity. You're growing for profit. Medical was not. Yet the zoning rights for some places that allowed medical didn't allow for the transition into the recreational licensing. And so people that built these huge medical farms, for 10, maybe 20 years or so, now found out that all the money they invested in their real estate is worthless to move to the next step of the industry. And even then, going from cultivation to extraction, there's certain types of extraction that are allowed. For instance, on my property, it's zoned woodland reserve. I think that's what it is. It allows me to cultivate, but I can't do any sort of extraction specifically that involves hydrocarbons or butane, propane, hexane, things that would blow up. And for good reason. It's a bunch of woods. You're in a mountain, you're going to burn shit down. At the same time, it's not really something that people are wanting to deal with because they're solvents. Ideally, for consumption in the healthiest manner, you want something that's solventless. And that, of course, means that you don't have to deal with a lot of the other issues of like having a fire marshal inspect for a sprinkler system, or having to house these high pressure explosive gases. There's a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of news stories that pop up of like labs exploding and people getting their faces melt off, and it's true. It's a hazard. It's still used in some industries with success, although there are still dangers. But trying to find something that fit what I was comfortable doing and what I had the funding to do was a big challenge. And I moved. I like 4 or 5 days before Thanksgiving, in like 2016. I left Texas. Like, I just said I'll be back. I drove to Oregon, and I spent Thanksgiving in Oregon by myself in a diner, and I stayed there in hotels and Airbnbs for 2 months until I found a place. And when I found a place, I drove home. Grabbed my dogs, packed my stuff, packed up my whatever I had for that business, and we left. Um, that was its own challenge, man. Like you're talking about, turning a piece of raw land into a farm. Like, how do you do that? You watch some videos and do some research and pay some people that are smarter than you. And even through all that, like the funding came from the other business that I had. And so at one point the DEA got involved, like Drug Enforcement Agency. So they had an interpretation of one of the herbal product that we were selling, and claimed that under a certain whatever, that they were going to classify it as like Schedule 1. And so we kind of freaked out, and we're like, there's no grounds for this, but you're going to do it. Okay. So we had like this 4,000 square foot warehouse at the time, and like look around, I see all the rafters and the girders at the top, and everything's covered in like this fine dust from this herbal product. And all in my mind, I'm just like, dude, this is bad. Like if they schedule this as a Schedule 1, like anything, then they're gonna come here, and like you have a warehouse and you're manufacturing a Schedule 1 substance. And it's not just like weed. It would like, as a flower, it would have been charged for concentrates, and it would have been really bad. So we sold everything and just threw shit away. Like I lost a lot of money in that, but because of that, all of that fell through. Didn't have anybody to hire again to get back to business. So I hired this co-packer. Fast forward to the middle of this farm, the co-packer, she ends up getting shut down by the FDA and lies to me about it and tells me she's allowed to do business, and all's good. The FDA issue happened because she was mislabeling this product. And when it's mislabeled as such, specifically, they were calling it a dietary supplement. And a dietary supplement is it's a specific jurisdiction that the FDA controls. If something isn't intended for the diet, then by definition, it is not a dietary supplement. Our argument was that nobody's consuming this for their diet. It has nothing to do for nutritional value, no protein, no nothing. It has nothing to do with the diet. So we always labeled it differently. FDA shuts her down. She lies. She steals a bunch of money from us. I had diversified into the farm. So I had enough money in this account to cover the business, and then everything else was going to the farm. Well, when she stole that money, that stopped all of that. And then she lied to me about it for months. And I'm actually still going to court for that. I've got my hopefully final. Dude, we've been trying to go to trial for years. It's COVID happened. It's like they say contracts, and we'll get into the contracts thing later, man, but contracts are only as good as the money that you have to enforce them. Doesn't matter what you've got. Like, it's a long process. And for some people, it's not worth it. The problem with us is that she cost me my entire business. So that's another challenge, like you've got this funding for an incomplete project. And until you have all the funds to complete the project is going to remain unfinished. And it's risky because something like this happens, and then all of a sudden, what do you do? So I had a choice, do I try going down this path? I'm unsure of, like, the FDA's investigating or seizing bank accounts or whatever they're doing, or do I just double down on the farm? So I doubled down on the farm, and figure, this is what I love. This is what I'm about, and I'm gonna make it happen one way or another. So I started kind of recording what I was doing. I created a podcast, and in my mind, it was just like, again, being grateful. I didn't need it to be professional. I just put my thoughts out there. I was how to start a cannabis farm podcast. And I talked about a lot of stuff because, like, I was out in the mountains after a while by myself. So it's just like me and my dogs, and like surrounded by the mountains, there's nobody to talk to. So you start talking to yourself, and then it becomes a problem when, like, yourself starts talking back, but it's not the self that you think it is. It's weird shit, man. But, like, it was tough when you're trying to fund your farm and you don't have an income. And so you're just trying to budget what you have. And there was a segment that I made called Growing While Growing Broke. And it was kind of how my attitude changed of, like, you could just spend money on this or this to, like, look, like, I got one chicken thigh for the dog, got one chicken thigh for me. All my money's got to go to the plants, because if the plants stop growing and I can't finish the harvest, then, what good was all the other money that I spent? So, like, I had to, like, balance this stuff. And at the same time, you're going through this little depression, and there's nobody to talk to about it because you're on your own. And, like, my ego is still, like, giant. So, you don't want to admit stuff. You try to talk to somebody, but it's a humbling experience, man. Like being an entrepreneur, I've had successes. I had a successful business. But also having one that's, like, when things are failing, or a better way of looking at it is, like, you just got really expensive lessons. It teaches you about things about yourself. So I learned, what I could and couldn't do. I learned what I could and couldn't take. I learned that
Jared, I think we lost your audio there real quick. No, try disconnecting and reconnecting real quick. All right, I think
How's
we got
that?
you. Yeah, we're good. So we lost you right on you learned what you could and you couldn't take.
Oh yeah, no, man. It's like the mind is, like, is very powerful. Like, I learned that, like, the negative thoughts, like the voices that tell you this or this or this, like, that's not you. That's not, like, whatever's telling you can't achieve anything, or this, like, that's not you at all. That's just something that exists within the body that you are encompassing at this moment. And I was like, fuck that. I'd rather work with the voices than be a slave to them. And so it's like they say, your ego is necessary in a sport like this, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a give and take thing. Like, you got to have something. It's there for survival. But at the same time, like, you're here to experience things. You're here to grow. And when you take the time to, like, question your really deep inner self, you'll find, man, that, like, your ego is not a bad person or a bad soul or a bad spirit. It's just been like abused. That's just kind of how it feels. It's just like it just needs some loving, and it's weird, man. Love it moves things, and I realize like it's okay to have things go wrong. It's okay to have experiences that aren't um positive in the light that you would normally look at them from. Um what matters though is that like you grow from it. If you're giving an opportunity, even if you don't see it as one, if you just see it as, an event, it's on you to make the best of it. And if you don't, that's fine. You know, uh, you're given all these things, and it's just how fast you can pick them up, and learning to deal with it. But man, there are a ton of issues at this place. Um, like I loved going to Oregon, but I also feel like it was one of the roughest times in my life. Um, and even trying to move back, man, uh, like I moved back because hemp had become federally legal, and it was just time. There's a lot of things that were working, weren't working the way that I wanted them to. I went out there with the intention of starting a recreational marijuana farm. Um, I uh, I went through the county, had like a 2-inch application. Man, I got approved. It was a beautiful thing. I spent a lot of time designing plot plans, doing stuff that would have cost me, you know, 50 grand doing it by myself because I didn't have the money. So I felt really empowered and like, you know what? I don't need these people. I can do this shit myself. But things didn't work out. And even moving back, I was blessed with an opportunity to lease the property out. And fast forward a few months, property gets raided. And I'm like, what do you mean the property gets raided? So I get a call from my neighbor. It's like 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock my time. So it's like 6, 7 o'clock Oregon. And my neighbor's like, your property just got raided. Like, what is going on? Like, I have a lease. It's for hemp. They're supposed to be like growing a bunch of hemp and making hemp seeds. And at the time, like the business model worked out where they could make like 25 million, something like that off the property, for what they were doing. And they seemed, all right, so like, fine. So, and again, I was starting all this. So I like really hands off. I'm focused 100% on Texas. Find out the property gets raided. And I have to wait till the season's over, like here in Texas when I harvest, so I can fly up there to go see what's going on. And I like find out that there's, I don't know, I don't want to say too much, but it just got trashed. Um, so I had to figure out what to do with that, and I ended up leasing the property to another gentleman who trusted, and this dude owes me a bunch of money still, and it didn't get right. Everything was good. It's just the market collapsed, and like the market collapsed to the point where like his business model didn't make sense, and his investors left, and now I'm stuck with a property that's in the process of being cleaned up, trying to get it sold. But one of the things that I realized is like I didn't plan on becoming a landlord. It just happened. And I realized like you can't control your tenants. Like that was one of the challenges. So I'm sitting here looking at this like this is part of my financial portfolio. It's one of my assets. And it's increased in value. I mean, I if I can get what it's valued at, man, I'm good. Like I made my money back. The investment was worth it because it also paid for this opportunity to get to this point. And it gave me enough cash flow to be able to get hired basically to do what I'm doing without spending my own money. So I was like, that it's all the way, but I got to still pull this out. And you don't plan for things like that, but it's been a challenge just across the board, and it's something that you just have to be ready for if you're going to go down the cannabis path, entrepreneur path, real estate path. There's so much to it, and it's all a market. Everything, and it's not just your market that gets affected by, this or that. I mean, it's global markets. It's spy balloons that are affecting things. Just you name it, man. I mean, like oh gosh. And I will say, like, the biggest one at the moment is not even in relation to like me, but just cannabis as a whole is like we've got the Fed saying one thing, we've got the states saying the other, we've got all the states around us that say completely different things. We got different limits for THC and this and this. Then there's things that are illegal to manufacture, but they're legal when produced because they meet the definition of this. There's a lot, and you just got to be inquisitive yourself. It costs too much money to hire somebody to teach you all this stuff. Like, I could never charge anybody what I feel the information that I've learned is worth, because I've seen what these lawyers charge, and that's just ridiculous. But I will say, you have the ability to research, and that's, I think, the biggest asset that we have is like we got a computer at our fingertips. We have the ability to learn everything, and stupidity seems to almost be voluntary nowadays. But that's my opinion.
For sure. So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges that you've had to go through over the years. And so a question, like kind of wrapping up this segment here is, like kind of moving forward now that legal definitions have changed and now it's legal for hemp to be grown, in the entire country now. So how, like, are there other ways that you would like to see either the industry itself or maybe the government or the public's view on the industry? Like, in what ways would you like to see this change or grow?
Oh man. So it's tough because most stoners, most high level cannabis consumers, they haven't stopped smoking in a while. And because of that, like, their tolerance builds and builds and builds, and they almost have a disconnect with the effects that cannabis can have. And cannabis really is just like a medium. It's just a means. You're really talking about the chemical interactions between like your brain and all these different receptors and the various chemicals, whether it's terpenoids, flavonoids, cannabinoids, so THC or THCA, even all the different acidic compounds. But because of that, it's tough to have that conversation. I got arrested a long time ago, long time ago, got off probation, hadn't smoked for 2.5 years. So super clean, no tolerance. Man, when I smoked for the first time, I took 2 hits, and it was like a hit and a half too much. And I'm not a lightweight, but at the time I was, and I didn't realize how strong it had gotten. And coming from somebody who, like, I got arrested and for that because I was selling and growing and flying out and shipping and stuff, and so having that understanding of what the effects are, it was crazy to see, like, wow, this is strong, really strong. And I had to start building my tolerance all over again, because for me, I enjoyed, it's weird. I think you have to have a tolerance to cannabis to thoroughly enjoy it, because if you don't, 1 hit, 2 hits, it's too much. You need to have the ability to dial your stuff in. And so that's where the beauty of microdosing comes in. For people that don't consume cannabis, microdosing is huge, because that's the point, right? You provide small amounts that are equivalent to maybe your ability to withstand or tolerate a specific effect or a specific experience. And so having that separation is tough, because you've got people that are just like, oh, it's whatever. But man, if you were to take, a dab of an extract, dude, you probably throw up just because it's so strong. But like, it's tough to ask people to change their views.
Hmm.
They think something because of a certain reason. Who am I to say that, what you think is wrong based on what you experienced? That doesn't make sense, right? Like that doesn't make sense. What you think is correct based on what you've learned. What you've learned may be wrong. It may be propaganda. But it doesn't mean that what you think isn't correct to you. So I guess what I'd like to see is just, more education, but it's tough because education doesn't pay the bills. Our teachers, you guys don't get, like, it's tough to get the recognition financially, for what you're actually doing for America's youth, stuff like that. It's tough. Um, Schools, education, like a lot of that stuff, it gets kind of blown over. It's tough to educate people, and that's such a very long-term approach to getting the industry to change. But it's got to happen. It's interesting because a long time ago, and I say a long time ago, like 2006, 2007 maybe. I remember speaking with the guys from Texas Normal, as the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws, and they expressed way back then that it wasn't that the politicians here in Texas didn't agree or approve or didn't even care about the use of cannabis. It was that their donors cared.
Mm-hmm.
It was that they lose their job if they approve the use of cannabis. It's like, man, how do you argue with that? You can call them a shill or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like, still, that's how they see it. So how do you argue against that and try to be productive? That's the goal. The goal isn't to argue your point and to have like an ego battle versus ego battle. It's like actual progress. How do you argue that? And it's a very philosophical question. That's like, it's person to person. I think you have to have like the right person have a discussion with the right person. Otherwise things they don't work out. But into more like the paintball realm, it's interesting because like cannabis is everywhere in paintball.
Mm-hmm.
It's arguably part of the culture. Every parking lot smells like weed. The divisional pits smell like weed. When players fly in, they're trying to find weed. It's a part of paintball. At the same time, I also see the group of people that, they got their kids. Like, we don't want our kids around that. Not because it's bad. We just don't want to have that conversation with them yet. So I think it's we got to kind of come to this common ground. And so one of the things that hopefully Mark Franz, Notorious.com we'll be able to come up with, and we've been joking about it, but like a smoking trailer, where you can like have it filtered, you can come smoke your hemp and consume in a confined area, and maybe we can get like the NXL's blessing, because if in order to kind of appease players and kind of bring stuff from out of the divisional pits, out of the stands, and maybe make it more acceptable, maybe give people a place to do it instead of just telling them don't do it, or just say, hey, we're cool with it, but like vapes only, cartridges only, like no combustion. And maybe don't be like anti-cannabis, maybe just anti-smoke, because then it's like, oh, secondhand smoke's bad, carcinogens, yeah, fuck yeah. That's something that even smokers are like myself, I'm like, dude, it's way healthier to eat an edible than it is to smoke a joint. Don't care what you say. I'd rather have, like it's just there's methods of consumption that are healthier, especially for what we're doing. Um, you know, it's a part of it, and I think it should be embraced. But I also understand why. I'm not going to stop playing if cannabis is like no, people they'll just go to their cars like they normally do. But at this, it's unfortunate because half the states that we play in are legal or medical, yet the viewpoint is always negative.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think that should be. And maybe it's because I am a smoker. But I will say this, and I'm not going to call names, but there are some very big players I don't mean players, but there's some very big people in the industry that have their hand in cultivation one way or another. And that's just true. There's a lot of paintball that got played and a lot of fields that are they're operating because of the cannabis community. There's a lot of people that are able to play because they have their side hustles. To speak down on it is like, a blessing's a blessing. If it puts money in your pocket, fine. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe there's a better way of consuming it. Maybe there's a lot of better things. But I would like it to be viewed at from like, a 2023 perspective, not like a 1937 perspective or whatever. I mean, like, it's such a big part of my life to the point where like I went to jail for this. I risked my life for this. I got buddies who died in the mountains and got buried in the mountains for this. There's people before us, that they risk everything for this. So like to disrespect it, to speak down on it, I understand where they're coming from. I don't judge anybody for it. But as a human, knowing that they are part of the spectrum of humanity that I'm also on, just sucks. Just sucks, man, because it's just a plant. There's a lot of things that do things, but it's not the effect that you're really mad at. Maybe it's the shift in power that will probably happen, from a community of users versus a community of non. But who knows? Who knows, man? Maybe I'm just stoned. But yeah, I'll just leave that with that, man. I think that was good.
Yeah, for sure. I do like how you're relating it back to paintball and the paintball industry. I mean, I can definitely tell you that if the boss man Mark Franz were able to work something out with the NXL and y'all were able to get a trailer like that going, y'all would be the richest team in the NXL Pro Division, and wouldn't be particularly close. I don't think. I think you'd definitely get a lot of business there at least. So now I want to, we've talked about kind of your background, your history as a paintball player, and just kind of who you are in general. I want to kind of move the clock forward to this past season. So
Cool.
You started out the year on the semi-pro team STK after playing on and off with Grit X in Division 2, and y'all were fairly successful. Y'all had a bunch of Sunday finishes. I think you had a top 4 in there as well. So tell me about how the 2022 season started moving into semi-pro with STK.
Okay. I got to start with Diesel in 2021 because that sets up all of 2022. So I basically left Grit X middle, I think right after Chicago, which is when we took fourth. And Jeremy Zimmerman hit me up and said that Greg Pauly had asked for my number and that there might be an opportunity for me to make the team. So bring me out to a couple practices, and I'm trying out with another guy named Jesse. He actually ended up like having a muffler or something like slammed on his shoulder and like messed it up. And it's just he and I trying out. So he can't make it on the last day of tryouts or whatever. They're like, well, he's not here. So you made it. It's great. But I'm told that, probably won't get much playing time. Fine. I'm here for the experience. World Cup, no spins. I asked them, is there an opportunity to play beyond this? Like, we'll see. I don't know. So off season happens, go to a bunch of practices. At the second to last practice that I'm on, I get told that I might have to look for another team for 2022. And this is by Mark Johnson in a huddle, all the diesel guys. He's like, you're playing, you might have to find somebody else or somebody else. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, are you coming to the ASG practice? ASG is a field kind of near LA.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna come. Like, if there's still that one chance, like, yeah, coming. So fly out there on my own dime. And it starts off rough, man. I get there probably like 8 hours early, and sitting in the hotel, trying to get the room number from Mark, and it's this, like, I just need Mark to talk to the dude on the phone and, like, just tell him it's you so I can check in. And for some reason, for 8 hours, he wasn't able to do that. So I sit in the hotel lobby for 8 hours. And then Logan Dyer shows up and he joins me for a few hours. And then everybody shows up. So I'm sitting there for a while. And I definitely feel like, hey, dude, 8 hours, man. You can't just pick up the phone once. But I'm like, whatever. I know I'm the new guy. I know I'm probably not playing with this team. I'm there to learn. So whatever. First day comes, and we gear up, and I'm like, it's like, if you're not playing, ref. So and we do this thing where it's like you play 4 points and then you sit. It's like a 4-team rotation, whatever. I didn't play a single point at practice. I played 50 points. 50, 50. Whole first day. I geared up. I basically refed the whole day. And the first half of that day, I started getting that feeling like, fuck, man. Like, I'm not even getting looked at, like, hop on the field. And so I started having this, like, inner qualm, like, man, Mark doesn't want this. And what the fuck, man? And I just started kind of getting pissed off. And I'm like, you know what? No. I flew all the way out here on my own dime. If he's not going to put me in, then I'm going to get as much as I can out of this experience as possible. So I stopped watching the game from like a baby bitch like perspective. Like, fuck this. I'm going to learn what I can. So I'm spending the money, and I'm not going to get fucking walked over. Like, I don't need to tell him how to spend his money because he's supplying the paint, but I'm going to get the most out of the situation that I can. So I started watching it from a different perspective, and I realized really quick I was not ready to play pro, and Mark was 100% right. And I had to mature. I had to realize, like, you're not paying. You're paying for the opportunity to be there, but you're not paying for the spins. You're not paying for the other players, and you're probably not going to even play on the team moving forward. So if the opportunity for a good team to play other good teams like Dynasty and Aftermath, when that opportunity is so rare, can you blame him for not spinning you? And I was like, no. I can be mad. I can be fucking emotional. But, like, I'm a businessman too. That's dumb money being spent. The very next day, he spins me the first point. I looked at him. He looks at me. Jared, go in. It's like, man. I felt like, okay, cool. Probably got like 10 spins that day and like 5 spins the following that Sunday. But still, I grew so much, and I realized, like, I got a lot more work to do. And I wanted to make sure to tell that story, man, because like it bothered me for a long time, because like I looked up to Mark. I don't need anybody to like explain. There's like, we're at a high level, right? Like, I don't need you to like tell me why, or like baiting me. I don't think we're good. I'm here because I'm able to do this shit on my own. and like figure things out, and I'm grateful for the opportunity because like and even then it's funny. So we take first, we earn our pro spot. We're like walking out of World Cup and he's the last guy that I see. And we had like some little words at the practice before, and it was just because like he wanted to keep practicing and our guys were injured. And it was just like whatever. And shook my hand, and I told him, I was like, I'm grateful, even though I didn't get many spins and stuff. I'm grateful because he taught me how to be better. But sometimes it's like you can allow things to like dictate your future, or you could dictate your future by observing and fucking grabbing that shit and like no, like make the opportunity. Don't take make the opportunity. And I did that. And when I realized, because that's the thing, right? Is going pro, you're always grasping onto like maybe that 1 or 2 games where you did some pro shit. But you're not pro all the time. And that's the problem, is like you always think you can play pro because you've done some pro shit 1 or 2 times. Or maybe it looked like pro shit, but you were playing like a lower divisional team. So until you see real pro shit or you're playing against guys like that, it's like you need to be humbled. And I was humbled. And so moving forward, I asked Mark because I was very still wanted to be part of Diesel, man, and I wasn't ready to give up, but I needed to find a place to play. And FSU, they've been my home. I thought that their roster was full. I thought that they had like 10, 11 guys already. And that was just because there was a rotation. Some guys played that didn't play and stuff like that. I figured they were full. And one of the other guys who used to play with FSU separated and started SDK. And he had told me about it kind of before, and I just blown it off. And then at this point, I was like, okay, let's do it. If we're going to play D1, let's do it. And I did that for 2 events. And man, that was a whole other learning experience. So the idea was that we would take just like some spare bodies and build a D1 program. And I tried to bring everything that I had learned from Diesel and from Grit and build these guys, and it's like, okay, well, we only have so many weeks. How are we going to build a D1 team with D4, D3 players, D2 players? It's like, well, we need to, like, you're not going to get from D3 to D1 fundamentally in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You're not doing it. So focus on what you can control. That's the game plan. That's controlling the zones. Let's learn to build and structure a team. Let's learn how to play together. So we combined some different programs, and we built kind of SDK. And originally the name was Skills That Kill, and this isn't from like, I guess there was an old SDK a long time ago. It's not that. Originally the name was Skills That Kill. I had the idea of like study, train, kill. I feel like that's a very good way of looking at paintball and like the high end. You study, then you train, and you start murdering people. We go into our first match, first Division 1 match, and I want to say it was CDP, but we beat them, and that was huge. And then we go 1-3 throughout the rest of the event, but it was fun. It's a really good opportunity to learn. The issue was that the pits got really sour, really big, and it almost caused the team to implode. The second event was Lone Star Texas Open, the one at Giant Party, and Nico Hyde is our coach, now for Diesel. There were some issues where, to my understanding, a couple players were being sat, or they didn't like the way Nico was coaching. And they had asked me and a few other players about it. I was just like, dude, if you got a problem with it, you got to bring it up. So I don't have a problem. They're like, well, we should just cut him. Like, no, don't like you can't just get rid of the tool if you're not using the tool properly. Like you got to at least tell them if you're going to hire him as a coach, like tell him what you want. If you're not going to rely on the fact that he's pro and he's made it pro and his experience, then if you think that you're smarter, then tell him. And nobody did. And then we're on to Saturday, and we're playing New England Hurricanes with Trent and what's his face. Anyways, we're playing the Hurricanes, and like one point I hear so and so walked off. I'm not gonna say names, but like somebody walked out. It didn't click. They go out, run the point, come back. Come out, one of our teammates had literally walked out of the match. And to my understanding, it was because he wasn't getting any playing time. Like, what the fuck? He just walked out. Match ends, and then all of a sudden he's there again, and he's talking to one of the other teammates, the guy who started SDK, and they're discussing how like they're not going to even play the last match. I'm like, this is like we're already like 0-3. We're going home. But it was just weird and it was, man, it's like nothing makes you not want to play on a team more than like your own team, like not wanting to be there, not wanting to play and not having faith. And like it was rough, man. And granted, both of those players have apologized and are working towards being better. But it was tough, man. It was really tough. But the best part about playing with SDK was practicing FSU. And coincidentally, it's the worst part about playing with FSU is we don't get to practice against like ourselves that much. Mm-hmm. We do, but it's players got things going on. We run a lot of situationals and things like that, but it's just I love playing our guys because I know how good our guys are. And that's definitely like the reason that I think some of the guys that play against FSU get so good so quickly. It's like, dude, like you're playing against really good players, and that doesn't happen that often. Like up at Fit, it does. But X Factor, I love those guys, but they're known for not being there at their own field. It's Jesse's there, Alex is there, Colt shows up occasionally, but they're not known for being there. I mean, most of their guys are out of state. They used to be very homegrown, but it's tough. Like that was one of the biggest things that I loved when I was playing with Grit. You had the opportunity to play against other Grit players, but hopefully X Factor. They just have a different, I guess, team model, business model, and it works for them. So like, who am I to argue or say anything? But I felt that there was definitely improvement that I made playing against them, because it was like, well, if we're playing against FSU, and we're already, a D2 team trying to punch up a D1, like I got to do that much better. So yeah, I guess, I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, it's a very good experience if you're able to play up or practice up. Well, not play up in tournaments. I don't recommend that at all. But for anybody able to practice teams that are better than you or higher division than you, like get every opportunity that you can. Like you're not trying to go win practice. You're trying to learn, and you're trying to improve and just see like, hey, if these guys that are better than me, like, are exposing me because like I'm either my communication is poor, or maybe like my fundamentals are just like not what they should be in certain areas, then you're going to get exposed for it, and you see exactly what you need to do to improve. So practice, if you can practice up as much as you can. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like just this past weekend, a couple of the Titans players went up to Outlaw. We got a great opportunity to play you guys, and
a great time, man. You guys have gotten really good, man. I loved whenever everything was happening with Grit and us, the Titans, because like it was great watching the progress. And that's one thing that bothers me. Like X Factor was definitely a home of mine. And now it is Outlaw. Like it's a community, right? Like a lot of you, like you guys are my friends, and it sucks not seeing everybody, consistently, and it's great going out there. It's tough because you got family, and you don't always get to see family. You don't always get to see how you guys are doing, and I like seeing, at least the Austin Titan, the Texas Titans, but the Austin guys. I like seeing you guys show up because hell, a lot of those guys were like, throwback to Austin Weird. And I remember those motherfuckers, dude. And Austin Weird was dope, man. Some cool ass dudes. And it's nice seeing them progress. Ryan and Josh, man, dudes are cold blooded.
Oh yeah, they still are. Still are, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so that's part of why I like to do this podcast too, is just to help connect different parts of Texas all together. Like, I feel like, not a lot of people would know what's happening in the Valley, because sure, the Valley guys, occasionally they'll, like right before a USXBL or whatever, they'll travel up to X Factor or whatever, get some scrimmages in, but otherwise not a lot of people know what's going on there.
Texas Demolition is going to look really strong this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had a full-on scrimmage. Like, we reserved the field and everything. We shot 30 cases against those guys a couple of weeks ago.
How was it?
It was great practice. I should share with you some of the footage that we got off of that, because it was a really good learning opportunity for us. And just being able to connect like different parts of the scene to each other. Like it's not too often, like it's a little bit easier for you and me, because like Austin and San Antonio, like the drive between going from Outlaw to X Factor is only 90 minutes. That's not that big of a drive in the grand scheme of things. When you're like Austin to Houston is like 3-4 hours, depending on if you're going to Legends or you're going to Zone or to Wasteland now. And then going up to Fit from Austin, which, several guys have done that weekly journey, is 4 or 5 hours in some cases. So
what'd you think of Wasteland?
I have not been there yet. I'm going to get the opportunity to go at the beginning of March. So, I know a couple of I know the HTPS tournament this past weekend was held there. So I would love to hear some opinions of the field, because I've definitely seen great things. Plus they have beer on tap there. So, yeah, we got to make a trip.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. We've been talking I've been talking to Alex about that Martinez for a while, about just, trying to set up a bar or something. And I guess it's just, I don't know, insurance or what, but leave it to Houston. I think you're able to get like daiquiris to go back in the day. They might still do it, I guess. Drive-throughs, yeah.
Well, the whole reason they have the beer on tap there is because the people that own the field own a brewery in Houston. It's the Megaton Brewery. The owners of that own the field. So I think, part of the beer, and granted this is all just like, speculation, but I think part of like the beer that they have on tap is stuff from their brewery that they're serving. So
it's like a marketing expense.
I mean, yeah, but it's like going back to, hey, set up your little smoke shop van over at the NXL. You got a captive audience right there. You got your prime targets.
Oh yeah. No, see, the thing is you need to have like a consumption lounge. That's where like you just pay people to be there and breathe air. That's all they're doing.
For sure. So after your time on SDK, the first part of this past season, you make your way back to Notorious for starting with Sacramento. And I thought Sacramento and Chicago were those were two events that I was able to watch you play. I didn't get to watch so much a Cup just because, you know, we were busy playing the whole time as well, but you played phenomenally for them up the center in Sacramento and in Chicago, and you ended up staying on the roster for the remainder of the season. So tell me about, like, what was that like making the move back?
The move back was great. It was relieving. It's nice to be home, you know. Like the move to Grit came because a lot of the FSU guys had left and went to Grit by the time I had moved back from Oregon, and FSU was kind of no more. So I joined Grit, go play with your friends, you know, and then this happened, and it was just kind of, you know, trying to find an opportunity to come back organically, and that's what it felt like. It was very organic. Ryan Gray gave me a call, and we had a long talk, and he wanted to make sure that, you know, no bullshit. He wanted to know what was going on with everything, you know, and what his expectations are and what we're trying to do. And you know, I was with it. Sacramento, I felt rusty. Hadn't played a paintball tournament in a while. I know you don't grow cannabis or anything, but I was doing depths, white depths, just like manually pulling a greenhouse tarp to like flower my hemp. And I was doing that. Like I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and close the tarps. And the idea is you're extending darkness too, because some of these plants are photoperiod dependent, or they flower based on the amount of sunlight or darkness, technically darkness they receive. So anyways, I'm doing that stuff. I'm missing practices because I don't get done working till like 10 a.m., which is when I have to open everything up. But it takes me an hour to do it. So 11 a.m., by the time I get to practice, it's like noon. So I'm missing practice consistently. I'm like caught up with this, so I haven't been able to go to the gym that much. It was just a lot of work, and I felt slow. I felt rusty. You know, I had a couple moments, you know, but it wasn't the best paintball I think I played. You know, I made some mistakes, just not crawling, you know, when I should have crawled, little stuff, just sloppiness, you know, and that's fine. Unfortunately, very last point, I think we were playing Phoenix Rising. I get pulled off break because I didn't either I ran out of bounds or I didn't make enough forward progress on the baseline. The problem is that there's no like baseline that you can see.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, and it shouldn't have happened at an overtime point. You know, and refs maybe shouldn't have influenced the game that much. I also, taking responsibility as a player, I need to know where the fucking baseline is. I'll never make that mistake again. We don't play for the consolation match against Blast Camp, and because Blast Camp was like higher seeding or something going into it, they take the third, we take the fourth. Chicago was a grinder. We do the hurricane stuff. You can play it fit. The center, man, I played the center really well because it was if this then that type of center. There were certain moves that were like, again, there's no point in making this spot because if I make it and somebody sees me, then the opposition isn't going to get into this bunker. So it kind of, you lose the tactical advantage of getting there when somebody else is somewhere because, well, shit, I'll just break it down. So there's like at this Dorito 3, whenever you go to the Chicago layout, there's like the second brick on the kind of in the 50. Whenever you can creep up to that, you're able to see this like the Dorito 3 or something. When nobody's there contesting him on the inside, the Dorito 3 tends to play really big and sloppy. when he's playing on the tapes. It gives you a really good opportunity to shoot him. The problem is he's not going to do that unless he thinks he has the ability to do that. You have to let him get there. Let him think nobody's there. I can play big and sloppy. Wait for the call. Hey, Dorito 3. Okay, let me go here. Let me shoot this guy. Great. Now there's 2 big old wedges. So the first one you check off is the one right around the corner. Well, if he's not there, he's right in front of you. Go dunk him. It was very if this, then that. And that's what I had to realize. And that's how a lot of these fields are starting to play, is like, there's moves that you can make, but unless you have a reason for making the move, don't make it. Like, give yourself a chance to do things while the game develops, but also don't get yourself into a position where you can't retreat. That was a big one. You know, there's points where you can only run through so far. But Chicago worked out, man. I was hitting all my shots on break. We were shooting their snake eye. Doesn't matter who we were. That little, I don't know, jigsaw puzzle, whatever thing in the center, like, I'm a short guy. You know, I can get lost really easily in there. My first point in Chicago, I won a 2-on-1. It just happened to be set up for a good event for me, you know, and they're not all like that. Going into World Cup was I kind of screwed myself. So we go into our first practice against the Hurricanes, New Orleans Hurricanes. We go over there, and you know, it's me and British playing the center, and I go in one point, and I end up getting like a 5-pack. Because like I come around, I shoot their center guy. He just has his gun down. Anyways, go shoot a bunch of people, get the 5-pack. Playing the center, outstanding in my opinion. Like, doing a word, but it gets to a point where it's like, okay, it's just bloody knuckles at a certain point. You know, and I thought I had the center really good. I try to evolve that. You know, how can I get better? That's when I go on all right, let me study Nick LaBall. Let me see how he's playing it. And I realize how he's playing that wall. And I try to do it when we play Fit and Diesel the following weekend. And I realized that, like, I can't see over the brick. And I can't aim well. So I love you, Mark Franz, and I don't mean to make fun of you, but
did you France it?
I fucking Franz it. Up like this, straight up. I get shot in the hopper, and people see me, and I want to say that's the moment where our coach Ryan Gray pulls me from the center, because after that, man, it was like I got pulled off the center, and then Paul and British take over the center. I'm just like, fuck, man, I shouldn't have done that, because like I like overextended, literally. And that like, you know, in retrospect, who cares? Like, they're probably the better ones that play the center because they can shoot over it. I can't. So like, sure, I'm playing it good, but if I can't play like 30%, 40, 50% of the bunker, I'm not the guy to play it, you know. And that's always been the knock against like short people playing the three. It's like, dude, there's certain shots that like I just can't hit. I've done all this stuff, man. I've loosened my barrel. I've turned my velocity down. I've done like crazy stuff to just try to get drop shots. You know, there's just certain things you can and can't do. And that was it, man. And so it was a very, very interesting kind of extension into those two events and then World Cup. But I think it was the right move. You know, coach did what he thought was best, and it was best. And we fucking won. So yeah, it's worthwhile.
For sure. And that's kind of getting into my next question as well. So after like the 4th place and the 2nd place in Sacramento and then in Chicago, you guys won in the finals at Cup over Fit to win the series. So you told me already like what that payout felt like in that moment with Renee as well. But like, tell me, like, was there anything extra that you guys were doing to prepare for this event?
It was all off-field stuff. Like like just camaraderie type of things. One thing that I did, so we go to New Orleans, and like on the drive in, it's like late, and we end up stopping at this gas station, and World Cup is soccer, right? And they have these shout out to Josh. They got these crunchy Cheetos. They got these crunchy Cheetos, and they got these hot fries and stuff. And they have these World Cup like hot fries, and it's gold. Like, man, gold World Cup Cheetos. Like, you got to buy a bag. So we got a bag, and made everybody eat one. It's like, hey man, if you want to win World Cup, you got to eat a Cheeto. If you want to win World Cup, you got to eat a Cheeto. We made everybody do it. It was just that sort of like psychological ingrainment. Maybe I'm brainwashing my team. Who knows? Maybe I do. But it was stuff like that, man. But a lot of it also came down to like making sure we maintained the momentum that we had after Chicago. There were some moments where we probably could have won in Chicago, that other players have told us about, other spectators. But we were also missing Michael and Archie Barnes. So like we were rumored to have a shitty team going in. Not a shitty team, but like just not our strong team. And I think that pushed us even more. Because it like to doubt the other 7 of us, 8, 6 of us, whatever it was, to doubt the rest of us because we didn't have 2 guys, like the audacity, the disrespect. Like, we think we're like, we haven't been grinding here this whole time. Like, you've been grinding, baby. You've been grinding.
He's been waiting for this one.
We've been grinding. So, shit. We're fucking grinding out here. It's all like an individual thing. Everybody put in as much work as they could. And we work together as a team. But a lot of the off-field stuff, man, it really like when you got friends or people you consider your friends, you tend to fight for them a little bit more. You tend to work harder and hold people more accountable. And a lot of it was like having respect for the sacrifices that everybody was making. Like not everybody could come to 2 practices a weekend. Not everybody could come to every practice every weekend. And so it became a thing of like, well, so-and-so can't come to practice and so-and-so isn't putting in work, to being like, hey, somebody's sacrificing so much to the point where like, dude, they can't make practice. And so when they do make practice, it means a lot to them. And it should mean a lot to us. So let's be grateful. And like, let's not be negative. It became a lot of that, man. Like, we got to come together and, probably a little magic too. Probably a little bit of magic. Like, there was an opportunity to tell a great story. So like, why not us? Why can't we be the ones to tell the story? This world is full of underdogs, and I think we believed in ourselves, obviously far more than anybody believed in us. We weren't even in the conversation. People, there wasn't even discussion. Like, us taking 2nd place in Chicago was like, nobody cared. People still talked about Fit.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't even on the finals field, but they still talked about them. The only thing that mattered to them was the blast can. Cool. Yeah. Great. They won at their hometown. Then what happened? It was just a consistent kind of just an acknowledgement that maybe pushed us. Maybe, I mean, man, Texans in general are known for like being hard workers. And we just don't give up in general. Like, we fight for everything. Shit. Remember the Alamo, it's in us. Come and take it. It's on the flag. We just fucking worked, man. And I think most importantly, we believed that it was possible. We knew that there's only so much we could do, right? And that if things didn't go our way, it wasn't because of us. It was because other people messed up. But in order for us to succeed, we had to do what we had to do. And so we just did that. We didn't worry about anybody else or what they were doing. We just focused on us and tried to win our games. And you know what? We screwed up really badly in our first one. And there's a whole thing where coach fooled us. And man, it made for good content. But
it did.
It was a good time.
Oh yeah. Just with the camaraderie thing with the Cheeto story, I know like, hey, first day of Cup got canceled because of the hurricane. And so like everybody was kind of holed up with each other trying to wait out the storm so we could go play the next day. I know at least for the Titans, like we made good use of that time, getting some bonding time in together. And I think it really helped carry us all the way through to our, to getting fourth, sending 91 other teams home, which
you guys did incredible. Like for what you did with the amount of teams, like it doesn't even matter like the division. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that can happen, and you guys were consistent and you consistently won. And it's, dude, that's impressive. Like it's amazing how difficult it is to win like in lower divisions because it seems like there's just chaos, and you have to be calm within the chaos because it's everywhere, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, we went through 6 rounds of playoffs. We played, and with the format, and with like the format change, they changed it for Division 4. They changed it to Race to 4 instead of Mercy 4 because of the scheduling. They had to make them all fit in somehow. We played 3 prelim games on Friday. Our last prelim game Saturday morning started at 6:45 a.m. and then we had to play 4 rounds of playoffs that day. 3 rounds of playoffs. It was 3 games on Friday, the last prelim game, and then 3 rounds of playoffs on Saturday, and then quarter semis and finals on Sunday. So 10 matches that we have to slog through, which is, yeah, it was a grind for sure. But
shout out to everybody that made that happen. I mean, I know there's a lot of, and hopefully a lot of that anger and like resentment has died down now, but it's not like anybody wanted things to work out like that. Nobody hoped it would work out like that. And it is unfortunate. And I don't think there's a good answer for it. Like who plays, at 9 p.m. and who doesn't play at 9 p.m. I don't think there's a good answer. It's, the NXL obviously did what they thought was best. And, I'm grateful that you guys are able to deal with stuff like that. But to be honest, I'd like to think that a lot of it is because of the local events. Like the USXBLs, man, like you play more games, and probably in Bunkerfest as well. Like you play more games in a tournament in one day than you would ever in the NXL.
Right.
And it's just that, like, man, that's like training. Like you should be able to outwork everybody at a national event because of the amount of paintball that you play at the local events here. And it's just the system. It's just the way that it's built. But man, like I'm glad you guys reached that level of success. Are y'all going to be doing D3 nationally this year?
Well, we're all D3 for sure. So we're doing the full Bunkerfest series. We're going to be doing the Bunkerfest Denver 7-man. And then we're doing NXL Round Rock for sure. And then beyond that, I don't know if we're doing World Cup or not. That's a long ways away from now. So, and then, I think we're also doing the USXBLs that are out of X Factor as well.
Nice.
So pretty full schedule for sure.
Yeah, good. Good.
So yeah, now looking to the future for you guys. You're the newest pro team in the NXL, which, I mean, you made it there, but the work starts now in a lot of ways, because now you're going up against guys that have been there for 20 plus years. And you've already made a move by picking up Anthony Bowles, who previously played for X Factor. So what are some of the other things that Notorious is doing right now to prepare for this upcoming season in pro, either on or off the field?
Well, the good thing is that there are literally decades of film on our competition, right? Like, we have so much film on our opponents, thankfully, to Ghost Wars and PB Access and everything else. I love watching film. To me, it's I don't know. I can't have film in the background because I want to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just enjoy watching paintball. But that's just more of like studying what people do and kind of like, okay, like, we're going to be playing these same guys until we stop playing paintball. We're not playing anybody else except the new guys that come up. So now we're into learning tendencies, rhythms, learning, just manners in which people get used. Other than that, for us, it's like we can't control what they do. So it's still on us. It's still on us to prepare, but even further, everybody's going to have to do 10% more. We had 8 guys going into Sunshine State Major. 8 guys. To make 100% improvement, we do 12.5% each.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can do a little bit, if everybody can do 12.5% more, that's 100% improvement. I don't think 12.5% is much to ask. Just an opinion, but I know that's not realistic. People can give what they can, and that's fine. At this level, I think it's definitely more about communication and getting all the information to the right people at the right time. Ideally, as fast as possible. It seems like breakdown of communication usually leads to a loss. And so if we can keep that high, then that alone should improve our capacity for winning. When we've played a lot of these people, it's not that they're better than you. At some level, sure, but I think there's a certain point where it's like, okay, you can shoot everybody else. Sure, someone's got a really good snapshot, but you're still just as shootable. It's just how you get shot and some of the different things that people do and don't do. Now it's more, that you're playing players that are as smart as you, if not smarter. So how do you outsmart that smartness? How do you step that up? That meta everybody talks about? It's definitely a different approach, and you have to just consistently focus on yourself. I think that's the best thing that you can do for your team. Focus on what you can change. And that really comes back to identifying your deficit, identifying areas that you need improvements. We didn't really talk about plants that much, so I'll just put this in real quick. When you're cultivating cannabis, a lot of times what will happen is you'll add too much of something. And too much of something locks out other things to the point where you start seeing all kinds of deficiencies, which show themselves in different manners. And so if you don't know what happened prior, you'll just look at this and be like, this is a calcium deficiency, or this is this deficiency, or this is a whatever. Instead of trying to go back and kind of, reverse engineer the issue. And I think that's one of the things that players really have to focus on now is, why are you successful? So a lot of the ones in our game, and I just mean this in general, are successful because of their athleticism. They get into spots and then they're really good. Well, or they get shots and they kill people and then, whatever. Big games, very explosive, exciting to see. Except at the pro level, these guys have been doing this for the last 10, 15 years. So sure, they're explosive, but now you got, Snake 1 guys or Dorito 1 guys or whatever, they gunfight. as well as everybody else. And so you have to kind of figure out, like, man, how can you improve what you're already good at? For me, like as a shooter, I know I have to shoot at the fastest players in the world now. That means I got to be even faster. But more importantly, it's probably like maybe I have to give up one of my shots in order to make sure that I hit this other person. It means that like there's no dicking around. You can't try stuff. But also that, my first ball has to be even more accurate than it was before. A lot of it is definitely going to be just the thinking, man. It's going to be a lot of thinking, but hopefully we do a lot more two pot in the hopper stuff. I know we've got some good practices coming up. Anthony's going to be an interesting addition. He was extremely successful, not only with FSU, with X Factor on both sides of the field. He did really well with Trade My Gun. I know he's taken a sabbatical for a little bit, and I know things with X Factor was a little rocky whenever that happened. But if he wants to shine and is ready to really get back in the sport, like we got the platform to do it, and it's a good group of guys, all local. He lives in Austin also, so it should be a good time. Otherwise, man, I think at this point, we're trying to really establish like the business of FSU, the business of AustinNotorious.com, like having a way to fund a program that can afford to bring players up and afford to keep this information at a readily accessible arena. It's not really kind of thought of, but I've been in the sport for a while. I know how hard it was for me to just learn. So actually, one of your new pickups, Taylor Resume, he's played with Grit. I told you this at practice. Like listening to him talk was one of the things that really changed my perspective on how to dissect a point. And after hearing it, I realized, I haven't been asking the right questions, not only in general, but even myself. I just didn't know how to break a point down. I just needed to hear it once. And so that's what it was. I'll actually give shout out to Meter Ninos. He helped us. He actually answered a question of mine when I was playing on Grit about playing the center in the Chicago 2021 when we took fourth. And because of that help, it just made a gear click. Just one little thing like there's because of that, it's like, wait, now all of a sudden that go from D. So just and to be honest, like without like Alex Martinez being able to fund the program, to have Meter there, to have him be able to help me, like that information would have died, and we probably, I'm sure our guys would have gone, been successful, but I wouldn't have been successful, hypothetically. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, man. We're really trying to build a program and build something where we can build our youth, we can build our lower divisions and keep things in a sustainable fashion. We're trying to coach our guys, we're trying to teach them early, and just have them skip some of the struggle. If you want to struggle, that's fine. Some people like to struggle, but we want to build something that'll last and act as like a pillar for Texas paintball, just in general. I mean, FSU's big in South and Central Texas. It's not the only program by any means, but it's one that I've personally found success in, and I know a lot of the best players in Texas have found some success with them. So, yeah, man, we're doing what we can.
For sure. I think that all of these things that, I mean, like I've seen it firsthand, like y'all are definitely working hard and working and like trying to approach it in a smart way to get all of these improvements. And granted, like it's not like hey, if you get last at this first event, you're getting relegated. Like, no, you've got a full season ahead of you of growth, just to like, hey, like, yes, someone does get relegated at the end of the year, but at the same time, like you've got a lot of time for improvement and growth. And looking like I want to talk about the bracket that y'all are in for this first event real quick, because the NXL released it a few days ago. And while I'm pulling this up, everybody in the chat, we're getting to the end of our show. So if you have something you want to ask Jared, go ahead and get your questions in the chat now. I'll scroll back through the chat in a little bit. So y'all's bracket, y'all are in Group C for this first event. You've got Edmonton Impact, the Brooklyn Bears, the ML Kings, and Columbus Level. That looks like, considering all of the roster moves and things that have happened with all of those other teams. I mean, the Brooklyn Bears were Seattle Thunder, and they've lost most of their Seattle Thunder players except for GJ Sakaguchi, and picked up a whole bunch of divisional players from a bunch of like semi-pro players from a bunch of different semi-pro teams, like the Killers, Carolina Crisis. And then you go to the ML Kings, they just lost all of their best players. And then, same thing with Columbus Level. They've lost, I think, 2 pretty key players on their roster have taken a step back for this season. I might be confusing them with NRG, but I'm pretty sure it was Level. And suddenly, you may be the tier 5 team in your bracket, but that's looking like a very doable 2-2 or possibly even 3-1. I mean, Edmonton Impact is Edmonton Impact, but with the rest of those teams, that's looking like a very, very like accomplishable goal right there. Granted, there's a lot for your first pro event, but it's you've got I would say like favorable, given this, like for a tier 5 team, that I'd say that's a pretty fair and favorable draw that you've gotten. So what are your thoughts on, going into this?
It's arguably the best bracket we could have gotten.
Mm-hmm.
So that's useful. Impact is Impact. We're still us, though. It really doesn't matter who we play. We're gonna play them as well as we can. We've got looks against X Factor. We've got looks against Diesel. We weren't able to mix in as much with Thunder at the last World Cup practice. Some of our guys have played the MO Kings, like they've ran against Revo. It's not like we don't have experience playing high-end pros. We do. There's definitely some changes that we need to make, some tweaks that we're making. I can only hope that our guys are going to do it. But it really just comes down to not making mistakes and really capitalizing on stuff. I used to be intimidated by pros. I used to be. Definitely ain't anymore. But it's only until you realize like their mortality. Like pros aren't superheroes. They're not immortal. Like they are mortal. They can be killed. And once you start getting that little cocky smirk, you're like, hey, you're good, but you ain't that good. And then more importantly, then you got to recognize and like appreciate like you're good too. Like it's like cool, you've joined them, but it's because you've earned the right to be there. And it's funny. So like Mark Johnson, actually, and I keep bringing him up because he's been a factor in the last year for me, and just for whatever reason. He told me, he like congratulated me on making pro at World Cup, and like your first 10,000 hours, like congrats, you made it. But to stay here is another 10,000 hours, and like that's true too. The best of the best of the best are playing in this division. I'm sure we will play them at some point this year. And it doesn't mean that our goal isn't to still like do the unthinkable and win a pro event our first year. Why not us? Why can't we do it?
Mm-hmm.
We won in D2, we won in D1. You think the story's done writing itself? There's another chapter. It's us winning a pro event. Like, why not? It's the people that don't think that it's possible show that it's even more possible. Because for that much negativity, for that much opposition to exist, it shows that like the other side has to exist. Things have to have potential. It's going to be on us to just do what we can, but obviously it's on all the other teams that mess it up. The reality of them messing up probably slim, so we can only do as much as we're capable of doing. And I'd like to think that we're mature enough to realize that, but I know my guys, we're not mature at all. Like, there's a video of standing a couch up to climb up to a window to get a banana peel down at World Cup. Like, we're not mature, but we're resourceful. Yeah, man, I think we'll do okay. The goal is always, win the first point, win the first match, make Sunday. And I think we're going to do all of those. I think we're going to win the first point. I think we're going to win the first match, and we're going to make Sunday. Beyond that, who knows? But I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully everybody that roots for underdogs is rooting for us too. Like I know it's tough, and like ideally our biggest fans should be our Texas homies, but that's not the case. Usually, or ever, for most teams, you're usually seen as like the competition, or so and so doesn't like so and so on the team, so fuck everybody. But that's okay. The whole goal is, and not goal, but the statement, right, is FSU or not. You're either with us or you're not, and that's all right, because we want all of it. The fans, the haters, it's all good. It's all good. It's all love, man. It's just love to hate or love to love. It's all love.
For sure. I'll be definitely rooting for you guys. A lot of you guys are really close friends of mine, and just been incredibly proud of you guys for this past season, and looking forward to rooting for you on the webcast for sure. Even though I'm currently, my jersey it's not an FSU, so I guess I'm a not. But
no, man, you're like, I was there when you guys first started, the Titans, and
right.
I'm grateful to have been there at the beginning, at the manifestation of the idea, and the implementation of it. Like, you guys are a staple of Texas as much as anybody, and like me, I'm a fan of paintball. I'm a fan of Texas paintball. So it's open arms for me, man. I'll always give you guys a hug.
For sure, man. And hopefully we'll, come a couple of years time from now, we'll be up there competing against you, talking about how we drew each other in the pro bracket, maybe one day. Well, why not us, right?
It'll happen. It's going to be something.
For sure. All right. So quick questions from the chat. I'm going to scroll through real quick.
Cool.
So we already asked the question about the Cheeto earlier on. Let's see. Lee Davis says Mox Nix. Jesus, haven't heard that name in a bazillion years.
Fun thing is that the name literally means nothing. Like, that's what Mox Nix means. It means nothing.
I love it. So this question from Isari10, what would you suggest for lower divisions to focus on at practices? I know we already kind of talked about that a lot, just like focusing on the fundamentals and
I mean, the fundamentals is a good place individually. As a team, though, I think the biggest thing is communication, right? Like, people don't do things if they have all the information. If somebody's here, you're probably not going to go somewhere. You're not going to be baited. But more importantly, knowing what you don't know. If nobody broke wide, then they're probably in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Little pieces of information like that are big. And I think practicing communication and just like knowing what's going on, that's the first step. Understanding your environment. Like, yeah, you got to play paintball, but excuse me, it really comes down to just knowing what's going on and making sure the right person knows what's going on. Sometimes, the information isn't necessary for everybody. Sometimes it's just you got to get the information to the person who could theoretically be killed by somebody. So if somebody gets into the 50 Dorito, great. Everybody needs to know. But if he's in the Dorito 2 and there's like a blind shot from the Dorito 2 into I don't know, the snake corner, that everybody knows about, like that's probably something he needs to know about. Or somebody gets into the snake, and if they get to the snake 2, but if they back off the snake 2 a couple a couple feet, they got this little sliver. Like, just getting information to everybody it's still the biggest issue, even at the pro level. So I think it's got to be the first thing that you focus on. Talking, but not only talking, listening, and listening with intent, because there's a lot of things going on, and so.
Well, I think we lost your audio, Jared. Let's reset this real quick. No, go ahead and disconnect, reconnect real quick. I think that usually fixes it. All right, there we go.
Good.
Yep.
Cool. Like learning how to listen, and picking out the right stuff. But like the codes are a big one, because they give a bunch of information, with a really, really, I guess, fast, or improved efficiency, I should say. Having the right codes is everything. I was just listening to, was it the Play the Game podcast today with Harrison Fry, and he was talking about how they started incorporating some of their 10-man calls into their 5-man stuff. And that was impressive. I'd like to know more about that, but communication is what it comes down to. It all comes down to communication. If you imagine this is like a chessboard, or a checkers board, or whatever game you play, it doesn't matter. If you're looking down, you have all the information. The problem is you're not looking down. You inhabit one of those pieces. So you need to try and get all the information, all the pieces. But one of the things that we figured out, though, is like sometimes somebody can't hear you because you're yelling into a bunker, or somebody else is shooting your bunker. So the sound of the bunker being pounded conflicts with your voice projecting, which conflicts with somebody else yelling. So it's chaotic. Also, a fun tip: if you don't want somebody to like say your position or anything like that, like, you can just shoot their bunker quite a bit, create a lot of noise. It makes it hard for them to hear, but also their voice to carry. Don't do that, but if you have the opportunity, do it. But yeah, I think communication, that's the one thing, man. And I don't really know how you practice it except for running low body situations. Do like 3-on-3s. Make it easy. You only have one person to talk to, or 2 people to talk to, and that's it. Start there. And then go to like 4-on-4s or 4-on-3s. Make it so that it's kind of chaotic. Like you're increasing the amount of static or just stuff going on, but you're still accomplishing a goal within a finite amount of people. It's kind of tough, but again, moving back to the very first thing that I said, in order for you to get a lot of reps and a lot of practice, you got to make sure you're not shooting a lot of paint. Otherwise, your budget goes down. So 2 pods and a hopper. I'm a fan of it. I'm going to say it unless we're playing like a layout or something, or we're playing like a really good team. But 2 pods and a hopper, practice your communication, let the game progress, reset, do it again.
For sure. I think my drill, or a drill that I know of that I really like for communication, is actually a little bit more focused around closing. But to be able to close is, you have to have communication there. So breaking it down in its like most simple form, what we do is a 2v1 drill, but the two, they start in opposite corners, so snake corner and Dorito corner, and then the one gets to pick what bunker that they start in. The two have to, and the two don't know like where the one starts. The two have to figure out where they are, shoot that person, and then run and go hit the buzzer within 30 seconds. So
we've dabbled with like playing telephone potentially, right? And so the idea would be to give one player a phrase, something weird, turtles love bubbles. And then you take that phrase and you start the game and you kick it out, and maybe at some point in the game you ask a player, what it is, or at the end you ask them what it is, whatever it was. I don't know. It's just something. But I mean, we've dabbled with a lot of things. Communication is tough because you get sucked into the moment. And even then, we've got great players that are, I mean, great, terrible communicators, just terrible. But a lot of times it's just like, how do you communicate? And breaking that down is like, well, so one thing that I told, we got a local team called Austin Oni, out at Outlaw, and like they were struggling to communicate. I was like, look, we're not a smart team. We're kind of dumb. So like we have to ask, like, what are you shooting at? Just like, I don't need to know what's out there. You tell me what you're shooting at. Okay, let me ask the next guy. What are you shooting at? Why are y'all both shooting at the same person? You need to be shooting at somebody else. Okay, next. Why are you shooting at this? Who are you shooting at? Okay, stay that way. Who are you shooting at? This guy's got a better angle on this gap. So you come do this, and now you're the free body. It's just ask, like asking questions. What are you doing? What are you doing? And if the biggest thing is when people don't answer. So I've come to things or points where like I'm yelling at like one of my buddies. Actually, we played this 3-man recently with my buddy Zimmerman and another buddy of mine, Tiny and Paul. We took second in that one, but there was a point where I'm yelling at Zimmerman. And I'm like, Jeremy, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? He's not answering. So like finally, I'm like, hey, Tiny, can you fucking ask Jeremy to tell me what he's got? So he's like, you kind of have to use people. Sometimes it's just your voice, by the time it reaches there, they can't hear you. And the next step of that is like not getting mad when you're talking to somebody and they don't hear you. Like that happened to us between two players at our last practice for the X Factor. One player's on the Dorito side yelling at one of our players who's in the snake. So there's a beam physically separating him from hearing anything on top of the entire distance of the field. The guy's like yelling at him, he can't hear. They get pissed off. Like small shoving match, just like whatever. The thing about it though is like we get caught up so much in what we're doing that we don't ask questions about like, well, what was going on? Why didn't you hear me? Was there anything that I could have done? One of those things is, and they talk about, is changing your cadence, changing the way that you talk. So instead of saying Dorito 1, it's Dorito 1. Little stuff like that, so that it sounds abnormal, so that you pick up on it. Just enough, like that's not normal. A lot of the best communicators are known for stuff like that. They're known for not only their voices carrying, but oh shit. I'm gonna break into this. Do you remember when you and your wife came to Maiko to have sushi with Mel and I?
Yeah.
And we started talking about singing lessons, voice lessons.
Yep.
So cool thing. I'm glad we brought this up. One of the things that I've dabbled with the idea of is via communication. I like when I communicate, I yell. And I noticed that like sometimes my voice gets sore, my throat gets sore, especially at a tournament. And I can feel it. And I'm like, man, like if I'm, if I find myself doing some long points and I'm fucking yelling, it starts hurting, then my voice starts going out. And I've always wondered about people, when they sing, and they use their diaphragm differently. They use their vocal cords differently. They even take care of their vocal cords differently. And considering that communication is such a huge part of our sport, it's amazing that that part, it just doesn't get highlighted, discussed. It's kind of like a joint. It's like something we just take for granted. And it only matters until it matters, which is when we can't communicate. And then what do you do? Then it's like, okay, all right, like ball 4, kill 1. Like we do that. We're trying to do that, but like you can't do that when you're in the snake, So there's oh man, communication is a subject, man.
For sure. I mean, it's guys all the way up to pro are still trying to figure out how to improve that. On the voice thing, who knows? I might be talking about it next week. We'll see.
Dude, that would be cool. I know you've got some insight into that, and I think that'd be an interesting topic because it's just I don't know anybody, not even in a podcast, pro player, anything that's mentioned something of that sort. So it'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll definitely let's see. I'll hit up Colt next week because Colt's actually going to be taking over on the hosting duty. So we'll see what he comes up with. All right, Jared. So we are getting to the end of our show. This is the one that I ask everybody that comes on. This is brought to us by Get Dat Shot, who's an NXL Pro Media photographer, videographer. Message him at getdat_shot on Facebook or Instagram for media coverage at either Bunkerfest or NXL. He's going to be at the full series for both. Is there anybody in Texas, either teams, players, brands, projects, field owners, tournament series, anybody involved in paintball in Texas that deserves more recognition?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as projects, for sure, Notorious.com. New website launching. Great jerseys done by Max Paintball. They're solid jerseys. As far as players, man, I really don't want to let them know. I don't want to shout him out because hopefully he doesn't get sniped. It's going to take a while. He's working, but we got this kid. He's, I don't know, maybe like 14, 13. Kid's balling, man, and he's coming up and he's learning real fast. Oh man, I'm only gonna name him because I hope that he's watching. His name's Talon. He's a beast, man. He's just a little kid, and he's showing just a lot of potential, a lot of natural skill. I didn't want to give him a shout out because I'm selfish and I want him to stay with FSU. And I like watching him grow, man. I really do. And like just supportive dad, just like good stuff, but he's working hard, man. And there's a few kids actually out at Outlaw that I'm really grateful because it's unfortunate when you don't see a lot of the youth coming out. But we do have not necessarily just there, but at Outlaw, there's a few more kids that I unfortunately don't know the names, but I know that they're coming out. I think they're playing with Evo or Hypnotic or something. But yeah, man, Talon's he's learning. He's learning really quick, and he's not scared. And that's one of those things. He's not scared at all. Also, there's this other dude, Andrew, man. He's not young. He's been in the mix with FSU for a while. But just this last weekend, his fundamentals looks really good. He showed some potential up the center that I hadn't seen in a while. And I'm happy to just watch his growth. And I told him last weekend, like the reason that I'm going to talk to him in particular is because I see some potential in you. And when I say I see potential, right, it's not your natural athleticism. It's none of that. Mm-hmm. It's your ability to grow in a certain time frame. If I can notice, like, so when you're losing weight, right? Like nobody notices you losing 5 pounds. They notice you lose 10. But like, what about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? They don't notice that. That's kind of the same thing with paintball. It's like people don't notice that little bit, but they notice when it all adds up. That's the thing. Is like when you notice that it all adds up, that's like it's all the work that you do behind closed doors, the stuff that you're working on that nobody gives you approval for. All the days where you're just drilling by yourself and you're just like, dude, I wish people were out here, but nobody's out here but me. And so you're just doing it on your own. I did that for a long time. I still do it. And it it is what it is. But that's like just recently, those two people have made watching paintball pretty good. Let's see. Anything else? Anybody else? Man, and shit, you in the pits podcast, man. Like episode 34 is huge. Like we said, like you're doing things that need to be done, and then there's a lot of people that are learning through your medium, and it's it's because of people like you that information is being spread, and people have information that's digestible, even if it's just like a medium, and you're saying like the goal is to just put stories out there. Man, you're doing God's work, and that can't be understated.
Appreciate that. And shout out to Talon. Shout out to the kids at Outlaw.
Yeah,
for sure. Keep it up, guys. I mean, hell, you got a pro player right here noticing. So, keep it up, guys. So, Jared, that brings us to the end of our show, which is brought to us by Gel Stewart's brand Compete. Message him on Facebook or Instagram, mention In the Pits for 10% off of your order of soft goods. So, Jared, thank you so much for your time, man. It's been a long time coming. I've been really looking forward to this. So any last shout-outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
Do you mind if I go over the shout-outs real quick?
Go right ahead, man.
I gotta thank my mom for taking me to paintball practice, man, that first time, and every other time till I could drive. Like all the moms, all the parents, you guys are amazing. Thank you to my sister for being the first person that I shot with a paintball gun. Thank you to my girlfriend Mel. Thank you to Mark Franz for being a hell of a team owner and a hell of a dad for supporting young Marky. That's Gray Smoke supporting White Smoke. To the coaches, our Ross Saunders, Tyler Spees, and Ryan Gray, Red Outlaw Paintball, all of our sponsors, AlamoAmmo.com, PrimeTickets.com, DLX helps you with charging your gun on the way to practice. I love that about the Team 40s. Virtue, HydroFit, Max Paintball, Soto Bands, at Soto Bands. Those are headbands that are made by our homie Sebi for one of our fallen brothers, Diego Soto. Everything else is whatever. And most importantly, man, everybody from FSU that fought with me this last year. I know not everybody's with us on the roster moving forward. But shout out to everybody else: Marky, Ty, Paul, British, Keegan, BY, Michael, Archie, and Renee. I love you boys. We wouldn't be here without you guys. And fuck, man, hopefully I did us justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And everybody still tuning in, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to go follow Jared. I know his Instagram handle's a little bit tiny on screen, but that's at _essential_experiment on Instagram. What other guests would you like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button. The show goes live weekly here on youtube.com/@inthepitspaintballpodcast. And recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. Shout out to my partners and sponsors, FUAthletics. Get that shot. One that we didn't mention earlier was Paintball Kumite, which is Colt Roberts' training regimen. He's going to be doing another class here pretty soon, I think. So message him on Instagram. That's at Paintball Kumite. and mention In the Pits for a free 1-hour introductory class. So shout out to FUAthletics, Get That Shot, Paintball Kumite, Compete, and Hustletown Paintball. We will see you guys next week for episode 35, where Colt Roberts is going to take over hosting duties, and I'm going to be the one that y'all are listening to. So thank you guys. We'll see you then. Jared, thank you so much for your time.